Hey there, Mr. Redder here. Welcome back to another episode of r/Entitled People Stories. Today we have a very special episode for you, a compilation of some of the best Entitled People stories we've read over the past year. So sit back, relax, and enjoy a few hours of the most entitled people you've ever heard of. And by the way, Karen assured me that for every thumbs up this video gets, she won't try to get anyone fired for an entire week. So please smash that like button and subscribe and turn on notifications for new stories from Reddit every single day. Excuse me, why is there an automatic 18% gratuity for parties of 6 or more? Because large parties are an extra burden to bear. Because if one person's section is bogarted by a large party, their night is sink or swim based on your charity. Because the number one reason service staff will have a breakdown or spontaneously quit their job is getting done over on a large bill. Automatic gratuity is there to protect the staff and the business. Cue this one high-maintenance sort and his family of 12. Despite their best efforts to run me ragged, everything went super smooth and genial. Then came the bill. Excuse me, but why is there an 18% gratuity? I'd like to write in my own tip. And you can. There's a line below where you can add whatever you'd like on top of the gratuity, and it's much appreciated. No. I'm talking about the principle. I always tip above 20%. Big, moment. But having it forced on the customer feels unfair. Me, playing coy. Well, if you wanted to tip above 20%, you can just add the 2% or whatever on the tip line underneath. It's the principle. I just thanked him and walked away. He sat there stewing for 15 minutes while his family was polishing off desserts and gathering their things to leave. A situation best ignored until they leave. And sure enough, he had signed the bill. No extra tip. Shocked Pikachu face. But managed to write out an entire novel on the front and back of his bill, addressed to the owner, detailing why automatic gratuities are the worst thing ever and how much more he would have tipped if it wasn't an imposition. Basically could have just written underneath, "Too long didn't read, I'm a cheap jerk." One of my first service jobs was at a corporate place where the gratuity was conditional on large parties, and at best you could only ask the party for permission to apply it. Most said sure, fine, but of course. So one night, my entire section is cordoned off for a large party of 20, mostly teenagers, and they did that obnoxious crap like ordering steaks well done, eating half of it, then complaining they want a new one, or asking for extra drinks when I was explicit about no free refills, but still complaining when the bill came, etc. I was gutted because I knew what was coming with the $400 bill. Hey, you guys cool if we add a gratuity? What's that? It's an 18% tip added to the bill to ensure staff. Nah, it's cool, we got you. Long sigh and head down in shame. They left me $15. My tip out on the party was $20, and I would never do over the rest of the staff, so I took a net loss of $5 for the night. I was shaking and ready to quit. Managers were all, "Bummer, but it's like that. See you tomorrow." I worked the slow lunch shift the next morning, and as soon as the rush was starting to hit, the general manager comes up to me. "Hey, I'm gonna cut you and send you on break for a couple of hours. I'm gonna need you to come back in tonight." I was so checked out. "No, I'm not scheduled and already have plans. Sorry." His eyes got big. The next morning, I tried clocking in, and the point of sale didn't recognize my number. GM had decided to can me on some trumped-up BS, but it was clearly because I had been insubordinate. Good riddance. Well, how about when you go out to eat? How much of a tip do you usually leave? Please let us know. Reddit boy and I usually leave 20%, unless it's very poor service. Then we speak to the manager. My house, my rules. Okay. So a few years ago, my dad was moving out of his house and in with his parents due to some health problems with my grandma. This was over summer break, and I was just out of high school at the time, about to go into college, so I had absolutely nothing to do all summer as I waited to move out of state. My dad never was, and still isn't, super organized, whereas I alphabetized my own bookshelf with a full system, type A, about keeping things in order. Call me weird, but I really enjoy reorganizing things and cleaning. It just hits that button for me. So being that he had about 2 months until he closed on the house, I just start to pack up some of the house for him. Basement was a disaster, and I had wanted to tear it up for years. So within the first day, I had made a significant dent in the basement which ended up being a very involved process. I didn't realize when we had moved in that a lot of the stuff from our old house was still packed haphazardly because my brother and I were too young to really help. So I went through the process of unpacking the still packed boxes from house 1, labeling the boxes the way I wanted to, and then repacking those boxes appropriately. After about 3 days of this, I get about 50% done, including cleaning and packing my room and some of the garage. Here's the build-up to the malicious compliance. My dad comes down to help me, all good with me. I start explaining where things go, and my dad wants to change it. I resist, explaining that I already have the system and that I have been doing the bulk of the packaging, so he should probably just go with me on this one, which is when he hits me with the namesake of this post. So I relent because I know what will happen. Anyone that's really type A will agree with me that the only thing more frustrating than things being chaotic and out of order is things that are slightly out of order, which is what I knew would happen. Regardless of the fight Dad and I had, he ended up almost following the system. Mostly things that belong in the labeled boxes went where they were supposed to, except for a few very important odds and ends that got put, well, not where they were supposed to. I noticed this, but because of my house, my rules, clearly he has a plan, so I don't say anything. I knew the payoff was going to be a slow burn, and it came several months later when I was in school across the country and unable to help. Dad calls me one day very flustered because he can't find something he needed. He had been in the storage unit he rented in my hometown for the better part of 3 hours looking. Now, the storage unit got packed horribly by the moving crew. I've been in there a few times after this story, and I feared for my safety. It's a legitimate labyrinth/jungle gym and a nightmare to get through. Not to mention, this was midsummer and there was no AC. So Dad is mad on the phone asking me where it is, and I ask him if it's in the box I labeled in big red Sharpie, "Important stuff." He says no, and I smile a bit. Then he says, "Well, you were in charge of packing all of this stuff, and now I can't find it." That's when I calmly reminded him of the blowout fight we had over this exact issue and how he commandeered my operation afterwards. I told him that if I was actually in charge, it would be in the box labeled "Important stuff." He hung up on me after that. I love my dad, and I had no problem helping him out. We laugh about it today, but I can't say I didn't get a good chuckle at the thought of him sweating and climbing around in that storage unit. He recently found another place to live now that my grandparents have more in-home assistance, and I've already worked out that I'm gonna come help him move. We already agreed I'm in charge this time. How do you like your house to be? Organized or messy? Please let us know. Oh, I can't stand messes. Don't you see how neat and tidy our bookshelves are? Am I the jerk for not letting my mother identify as a grandmother to my kid on social media? There's a lot of background to this, but the short version is that I, then 17, now 27 female, got pregnant as a teenager, stayed with the baby daddy, had another kid with him, then he dumped me. Mom, then 39, now 49, said some really horrible things and refused to act as a grandma to my 2 kids, ages 7 and 9. I'm now married to someone else, and we had a baby back in January. Now that I've had a child in wedlock, Mom wants to be a grandma. Can't find a place to slip this in organically, but my husband also had a child from before the marriage, a 4-year-old, whom Mom treats the same as my older kids. I didn't even tell her when I had my newborn, and she found out along with everyone else when I announced the birth on social media a couple of weeks ago. The actual birth occurred a few months ago. We held off on announcing until last month. When we announced on Facebook, this was also when Mom learned that the baby had been born. I already told Dad and Stepmom personally. This caused a fight between us, and I blocked her for a bit. I've unblocked her a few days ago, gone on her profile, and literally the top 10 posts are just about being a grandma. I then made a few passive-aggressive comments on her posts about how she's been a grandma for almost a decade now, and she's never met my newborn. A few hours later, I saw my comments had been deleted, so I posted on my page that I was incredibly grateful to my baby's grandparents, my dad, my stepmom, and my husband's parents for all of the love and support that they had shown me, my husband, my kids, and this baby, and how grateful I was for family. A few people were like, "OP, you forgot your mom," and I just responded that everyone who should have been mentioned is mentioned already. Mom has called me and yelled and cried over the phone, saying I'm a horrible daughter and making her feel and look like a bad mother/grandmother, and I need to take that post down. I refused. This has caused a schism with several people thinking I shouldn't have aired our dirty laundry in public, and that my mom's posts do nothing to affect me while my post was designed to hurt mom, so I should take my post down, while the other camp think that she deserved it, and I nearly corrected public record. Info: she only wants to be grandma to the baby. The elder kids, 7, 9, and stepkid 4, are not allowed to call her grandma because it makes her feel old. Am I the jerk? Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her mom? Please let us know. When is grandma's birthday? Maybe we can get her a heart. French Karen upset I speak English in England. I work at a company that has over 300 sites globally. I work in the only plant in the UK. We have 22 people who work here. I was asked to join a call with our other European sites, as I also speak German fluently and can understand and speak Italian to a level about the industry I work in. So we have this call and we have English, me, Greek, Turkish, Romanian, Italian, German, Spanish, and French on the meeting. Everyone at the other plants has management and can all speak English. Italian and German is broken English, hence why it's easier for me to be on it and translate if they struggle understanding anything in English. So we go about the meeting and German starts talking to me in German. I'm translating and it's all going well, and we all know each other well as we've regularly visited each other's plants. Apart from France, they have a new woman, Karen, who keeps trying to be the center of attention. She's been speaking fluent English all through the call so far. I'm translating the German and Italian. It's all going well. Until Karen starts speaking French. I told her I didn't know French. It's already confusing enough with 3 languages. The conversation goes as follows. Karen: what do you mean? You're the translator. Me: no, I'm a chemist. I know German fluently and Italian to a level. It's relevant to this call. Karen: well, why are you making me speak a second language but learning everyone else's? Me: I'm doing the company a favor. Otherwise, they would have to get a translator. Oh, I get it. It's because I'm new and I'm a woman. Me: I'm also a woman. No, I just never learned French. Oh, so it's a personal thing now? Me: you speak English. You don't need it to be translated, or it to be all about you. Karen hung up. Next day reported me to HR for bullying. I don't think she realized that the call was recorded, so I sent a copy to HR. Unfortunately, at my company, you have a 6-month probation. This happened at 3 months of her being here, and throwing out stupid accusations like this means you're probably not going to make it. Am I the jerk for calling my mother-in-law toxic after she ruined my birthday unintentionally? For context here, I, male 28, and my husband, male 30, have been married for 3 years and we've been friends for even longer. When I was 18, so I know his mother very well by now. She's a bubbly person and enjoys being the life of the party. I always thought well of her, and she was supportive of our friendship and there for me through a rough patch. My parents aren't the best people in the world, long story short. However, things got strained when we entered a relationship in our early 20s. My husband is her only child. She had him young, and his father was out of the picture before his birth. So it really had just been them for most of his life, really. I think she suddenly felt like she was losing him when we announced we were together, and later on that we were moving away from the small city we grew up in. Even though I've always made the effort to get along with her and encourage him to spend time with her, because sometimes he's reluctant. Anyway, I've noticed a pattern of behavior that has progressively gotten worse, especially since we got married and during the wedding process. Passive-aggressive behavior against me for the smallest things. I didn't know his coffee order once, and she joked that if I didn't know him well, as well as her, why was I with him? Like, what? And one big example, she made a crude speech at our wedding, one implying I had cheated on my husband. I have several close male friends, but that's all that's going on there. Though she brushed it off as a joke at the time. You get the gist. I always try to ignore it, and my husband doesn't seem to want to confront it either. Because of lockdown, I had a low-key birthday, just a very small gathering with drinks in the back garden. However, that day she complained repeatedly through text that she wasn't feeling well, but insisted it wasn't lockdown related and described her symptoms in detail, stating she felt it was anxiety related and that she had to come to the party. Living alone is making her stir crazy, which I get. So after the cake, I was talking with my husband and my mother-in-law just faints. It was awful. The whole party stopped, but it was odd. She woke up really quickly and seemed fine. But after that, she wouldn't let my husband leave her side, but refused help. I got frustrated because why did she have to come if she felt unwell? I made one comment about her maybe staying home next time, and she went off, saying that my tone was off and I'm trying to isolate her further during a lockdown. I said, no, you're now putting words in my mouth and you're toxic. It just burst out. I tried apologizing. My husband just stood there and said that maybe we both needed to calm down and enjoy the party. But my mother-in-law said she should go home if I didn't want her there anyway, and did exactly that. Things have been tense since. She's texting him a lot, but I've ignored her. I needed to collect my thoughts. Was I the jerk for lashing out at her? Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or mother-in-law? Please let us know. Definitely mother-in-law, as usual. She told me to do exactly what she says, and I did. I'm a secretary for a medical facility that funds other medical institutions. I'm also responsible for their travel to conventions and conferences. There is a very large and very highly attended conference held each year in which our medical professional staff are invited as presenters. One such Karen-esque presenter just had to be incredibly difficult, as she feels she is above us and never lets us forget it. As a presenter, they are given certain hotels that are reserved for them at a reduced rate. However, most are nowhere near the convention site and they end up paying a crap load of money for cabs. No Uber at the time. I set up the travel for at least 10 folks when I realized that by a loophole, I can book them into the hotel where the conference is held. So I do that instead of allowing the conference coordinators to book them in heaven knows where at the last minute, which they are prone to do. Karen comes up to me and demands that I only book her into the hotels listed by the conference coordinators, and if I don't, she will have me written up. So that's what I did. The day before they all leave for the conference, which was clean across the country on the West Coast, Karen found out she was not only the only one not booked in the conference hotel, but she was 9 miles away near the airport. And no, there were no more rooms available at the conference hotel. She was hopping mad and stormed to my desk screaming about me putting her in a faraway 2-star hotel. I looked at her and calmly stated that she was in one of the 3 hotels the conference coordinators reserved for her, and she distinctively instructed me to only select those hotels and nothing else. She ended up spending more than $70 in cab fare to and from the hotel to the venue, while everyone else only had to go downstairs from their hotel rooms. She almost missed giving her presentation because she was late. After that, when I booked everyone for a trip, Karen no longer demanded I give her special treatment and lets me use my judgment when booking hotels. Am I the jerk for suggesting my wife take our kids strawberry picking when she's allergic to strawberries? My kids are craving to go strawberry picking at a local produce farm. I was going to try and take them, but I'm an ICU nurse and I work from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday and on weekends, so I'm tired and I can hardly move. I've been trying to get my wife to take them, but she refuses because she's allergic. The thing about her allergy is it only takes effect if she actually eats a strawberry. She can hold strawberries, she can breathe in their scent, she can touch them, and she doesn't suffer anaphylaxis, she just gets a rash that goes away with Benadryl within 1 day. So she refused to take them for that reason. The thing is, the kids are cooped up all day long. They're doing online homeschool from 7 a.m. to 1 p.m. and after their school day is over, they can either play in the house or in the yard because my wife won't take them anywhere. My wife is an extreme introvert and homebody, and her idea of a great day is sitting on our covered porch with a book or a sketch pad and a cup of coffee. My wife can easily spend an entire day in the same spot on the porch. She hates bugs, she hates dirt, she hates plants. When I take the kids on our annual hike and camp trip over the summer, she refuses to go. The kids always miss her and wish she'd go with us to share the experience. So I'm at work right now and my son called me and asked if we were going to go strawberry picking this weekend. Unfortunately, I'm going to be stuck all weekend at the hospital because we've got 2 nurses out sick and someone needs to be there to take care of people, and I'm a head nurse, so I need to be there. I told him to put Mom on the phone and I tried to convince her to take them today. It's a gorgeous day. She said she was just sitting with a book and some Netflix and the kids were playing a board game. I asked her why she couldn't take them. She said she didn't want to be around the berries in case she gets a rash. I told her there were plenty of Benadryl in the house And we have latex surgical gloves in our bathroom first aid kit that she could wear, and she doesn't even have to touch the berries if she doesn't want to. But come on and just take the kids. They're bored and unhappy. She told me I was being a jerk and trying to get her hurt, and if I cared about her at all, I wouldn't try to get her to do this. She hung up on me and hasn't returned my calls. I'm taking a 5-minute bathroom break to create an account here and post this to get some opinions. Am I the jerk? Edit. I should add that I have an extreme allergy to dogs, where I actually do suffer mild anaphylaxis, and we still have a dog. My wife wanted a dog, and she told me that I could just use an EpiPen if I have a reaction to PD. Edit. Someone suggested I edit one of my comments into the post. My wife cooks with strawberries and buys strawberries from the grocery store because our kids adore strawberries. Our kids love strawberry shortcake and strawberry cheesecake, and she makes those for them all the time. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his wife? Please let us know. I'm really craving some strawberries now. I was just fired for the second time after quitting years ago. Long story short, in 2014, I was working at a pizza chain in a rural Utah farming town. I won't say which one, but they're a national chain known for being very greasy. At the beginning of July, I gave a 2-week notice to my manager that I'd be leaving to move out of state to be closer to family and a better job market. I finished out my time as promised, moved, found a new, better gig, and that was that. Of course, you read the title, so you'll know that that wasn't really all. In summer of 2015, I received a call from a new store manager. He informed me that he's been putting me on schedule and it was unacceptable that I wasn't even coming in to look. If I didn't show up today, he would have no choice but to fire me. I asked, did the old manager not take me out of the system after I quit last year? He grumbled and made some snarky complaint that if I had quit a year ago, I wouldn't be in his scheduling program. I let him know I live in a completely different state, am working a completely different job, and would not be showing up for any shifts he scheduled me for. He threatened to fire me again, and I reiterated, hey, I don't actually work for you, so do what you gotta. He hung up, and that was the last I heard of it. Until we fast forward to yesterday. I received a letter from the corporate office informing me that, per their records, I haven't shown up to work since July of 2014, and unfortunately, they were going to have to terminate me. I still almost can't stop laughing, especially since, they sent the letter to the address I gave them when I quit. Am I the jerk for not being honest about liking my birthday gift? So my birthday was 2 weeks ago. One of my good friends, E, got me a gift that was completely not my taste. It was a really weird-looking sundress from a brand I never buy from, in a style I would never wear. I typically dress in a more androgynous/tomboy style. I was kind of surprised because she normally gives amazing gifts and has gotten me cool stuff in the past. But because she's one of my closest friends, I didn't want to hurt her feelings. She included the receipt anyways, so I figured I'd maybe exchange it, although the brand is not what I'd normally buy from. Anyway, I thanked her when she gave it to me, feigned some joy as I opened it, and took it home with me. In my head, I was just happy to have gotten a gift. It wasn't my style, but it was still thoughtful of her to get me a present. I chalked it up to her maybe pushing me to try something new and moved on with my life. Today, we were supposed to get lunch, so I thought I'd wear the dress to meet up with her. When I showed up, she seemed really shocked and angry, and we had a pretty tense, awkward meal together. Later, I got a long, angry text from her talking about how disappointed she was. Apparently, the whole thing was a prank. She purposefully got me a dress that I would never buy myself, that she knew I wouldn't be caught dead in, to see if I'd be a good friend and tell her the truth. She had seen some dumb video on social media about giving people bad gifts on purpose to see if they're honest or not. E wanted/expected me to open her gift and gently tell her it wasn't what I really wanted and thus pass her test. Apparently, she was planning on giving me my real gift, a vinyl of this band I really like, after I told her I didn't like the fake one. But since I lied, I didn't deserve it. I'm really taken aback. Like, what the heck? Who does that? She called me a jerk for lying to her face about loving it, and I just haven't replied to her since. I genuinely don't know what to say. This situation is just out of pocket. This is really unusual behavior for her, or anyone I'm friends with, and I really don't know what to think. Am I the jerk? Is this normal? Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or their friend? Please let us know. and this is why TikTok challenges must be stopped. It wasn't Karen, it was me. Just a little background. I conked my head pretty hard on an F-18 fighter jet back in the Navy. I currently have some mild memory problems and kind of go into phases where I'm awake, but I can't really tell what I'm doing. It's an odd sensation when I'm tired or didn't eat well. I just go into this phase where I'm physically competent. I could juggle knives and tightrope, but not tell you how many fingers you're holding up or repeat your name when you tell me to my face. All this being said, it wasn't nearly that bad, which makes me feel terrible. You see, I'm 6 foot 7 inches tall. I wear my hair very short, so the massive jagged scar on my head is very visible. Until people hear me talk, they usually shuffle away from me and hold their purses, kids, or whatever closer, and try to stand near someone else. It's a little offensive, but I can't blame them. Books and covers and all, but I do look like a bad guy. Now, this story is simple. I was running out of food in my fridge, and I just got off a 12-hour shift. I didn't need much. It might sound gross, but a super easy fast food is hummus and hot dogs. If you get the higher quality hot dogs, slather on some hummus and a line of mustard. It's great, but still clearly bachelor food. So I go to this place that sells bulk food, mostly for mom and pop restaurants or big church events, that kind of stuff. I go there because you can get these great hot dog buns, $3 for a 24 pack. Then you get like half a gallon of really good hummus for $15. It's great, but I almost instantly made a horrible mistake. I came in, and just 20 feet in and to my left is the bread and the buns. I come in and notice a woman. It's been a long day and I'm very hungry, so I only vaguely notice she's wearing mild business attire, just like the employees, and some sort of blue apron, just like the employees. And to top it all off, she's in front of the hot dog buns, shuffling buns off of her cart and onto the shelf. I walk up and grab the last bag of hot dog buns on her cart and loudly, playfully announce, "Yoink!" She turns around and stares at me as if I just stole her purse. Something triggers inside me, and I know something's wrong. I'm still trying to keep up my happy tone, despite how tired I am, and it takes me a full 5 seconds of this poor woman staring at me, worried and almost shivering when I finally notice. Her cart has eggs, milk, frozen items, energy drinks, and a few other various items in smaller amounts, and her purse is on the cart, and the apron is actually a blue stripe on her shirt. I nearly break down apologizing, carefully placing her hot dog buns on the cart and keep apologizing. Thankfully, she either was nice or realized how upset I had made myself with this mistake and finally has to all but grab either side of my face and say it was fine right into my eyes. I still felt horrible. I'm huge and I have to be so darn careful not to hurt people just going about my daily life, and I hate scaring innocent people. I can be mean when I need to, but I really hate being the bad guy. I got my buns and my hummus, still looking down and barely even paying attention to the world around me, letting the embarrassment and pain grind away at me when all of a sudden I hear a playful voice say, "Yoink!" And suddenly my hummus is gone. I look over to see the woman smiling and laughing before she hands it back and tells me, "Don't tear yourself up. It was an honest mistake and you handled it really well." I still tear myself up about it, but it was a big step in the path of feeling better. Got screamed at today by Karen over an avocado. I'm full of bitter fury, so if you're a vindictive person, you may enjoy this. Little backstory. I work for a gourmet burger place. Everyone who works during this has seen the inner jerkness of the general public grow and grow. We've been slammed and understaffed because 3/4 of our staff decided to quit when this all went down, and every 10 minutes our phone rings with some dumb jerk asking, "Are you guys open? What time do you close tonight? Can I order random thing not currently offered?" First of all, Google answers every question you ask. Just Google the restaurant. Our menu is on the website. Our website is on Google. So anyways, after having the phone ring with the same crap every 5 to 10 minutes at least, and often having 3 or 4 calls come in at the exact same time, my phone customer service voice is slipping. I'm not rude, but I don't have the patience anymore to be all chipper and peppy over the phone. Today I get a call from a guest. Let's call her Jerk. So Jerk calls and asks to order. I politely direct Jerk to the online ordering platform because it will let you know what our new menu is, and we've been very busy, so it will help us get your order out more quickly. Jerk says she can't put blue cheese on her burger. I tell Jerk, "I'm sorry ma'am, we don't have blue cheese right now. Anything you can't find online, we don't have." Jerk says, "Well, I wanted guacamole on my burger, but that button isn't there either." Quick separate thought. Guacamole and avocado are two different things. I've worked as a server for years. You give somebody avocado when they ask for guacamole, and a crappy person will not hesitate to mess up your day with their poor social etiquette. So anyways, I begin to say to Jerk, "We actually don't sell guacamole, ma'am. We did for a while, but only for 1 month as a special. But we do not have avocado." I only get as far as ma'am. So she cuts me off and says, "I've seen burgers with guacamole or avocado or whatever that stuff is called." So I responded to her, completely ignoring that I was interrupted because what else is new? "Oh, avocado. Yes, ma'am, we do have that. If you don't see that online, it's an issue. I'm so sorry. I'll go ahead and take your order." Once again, cutting me off, she says, "Why would you split hairs between avocado and guacamole? Are you stupid?" I respond, "Well, guacamole and avocado aren't technically the same thing." And third interruption in a row, this jerk screams at the top of her lungs through the phone, "Don't you be a jerk to me." I say for the first time, not trying to hide my irritation, "Don't yell at me. I've done nothing to deserve that." She yells some more about how they're the same thing. I explain, if you asked for guacamole and I gave you avocado and you were upset by it, it could cause me to get an unnecessary, uncomfortable situation. And then, showing her truly undeniable stupidity and lack of self-awareness, she retorts, "What are you talking about? Who would get upset with someone over avocado?" At this point, my voice is flat and clearly upset, but I'm still not being snarky or rude, just abrupt. I retort, "People yell at food service workers about all kinds of things." Karen says, "Clearly you've had a hard day." I respond, "It was fine until a minute ago. What can I get you?" The rest of her ordering process, she's very quiet and much more respectful. I hope I broke her. I hope that realizing how mean she was, she broke down crying. I hope her husband leaves her and her kids don't call. Just to be clear, I don't actually have a legitimate problem with people calling and asking what time we close or if we're open. I know times are crazy. It just gets kind of annoying due to how often it happens, but I just wanted to get my frustrations off my chest. Karen's sister demands I pay her medical bills. Alright, so for some background. I have 3 horses and I teach riding lessons for a living. I have a small acreage with 2 full-time barn employees whom I trust dearly. I trust them with the life and care of my horses, and both of them have never given me a reason to doubt them or their actions. My horses also love and trust them. My horses are well trained and have never kicked. The one who did, edit for clarity, the one who did kick my sister, the first ever kick. When I say the one who did kick, I'm talking about this kick, is a retired lessons horse and my personal riding horse. I don't let kids ride him anymore. My sister visits often, and we have a very good relationship. Or we did, until now. I'm getting 2 different versions of what happened from my barn employees and my sister, and I've decided not to pay her medical bill since I'm leaning towards my barn employees' story of events as it makes more sense. So, my barn employees tell me that my sister came to visit and I wasn't around. She came in and was chatting with them, and it was while my old retired mare was getting a bath. The employee said she told my sister multiple times to stop randomly reaching out for my mare's tail, and that she was repeatedly bothering/petting/talking to my mare from behind, and the horse was getting bothered, pinning her ears and overall getting restless. Evidently, my sister was told multiple times to back off to avoid getting hurt and didn't, and was subsequently kicked in the leg by my mare and has a bone bruise. $600 medical bill for my sister. My sister says the horse randomly kicked out as she walked by. The horse in question has never kicked before. Since the horse in question has never kicked, and I could only really see her kicking if repeatedly bothered, I feel torn about paying the bill and decided not to. I mean, if you harass a horse from behind, it's your own fault for getting kicked, right? Edit to add. I feel I should mention that another big tell for me is that the barn employee continues to be fine just bathing her, picking out her feet, braiding her tail, and isn't nervous to stand behind her. The employee continues to say there's no reason to be because the kick was brought on by pestering. I feel that if my horse had kicked unprompted, my employee wouldn't want to do her grooming anymore or stand behind her, but she does and has no indication that she's worried about being kicked. I'm not talking complicated legalities of whether I'm technically bound to pay the bill by law, etc. To be blunt, my sister and I wouldn't sue each other. She's just upset I don't want to pay the bill, and I want to know if I'm really being the jerk here. Am I the jerk? Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her sister? Please let us know. You know what they say, Mess with the bull, you get the horns. Or in this case, hoof. The time Karen thought an Army cadet worked at McDonald's. Some background. At the time of this incident, summer 2014, I was 14. I was a member of the Army Cadets here in the UK. I was traveling back from a weekend camp with a group of about 35 cadets and 6 adults. On this particular camp, I had completed a 48-hour fieldcraft exercise, including mock attacks, creating a camp, setting and defending from ambushes, and a 9-mile hike in full kit with Bergen and rifle. Out of the previous 72 hours, I had slept for maybe 3 and consumed so much caffeine, at one point I could hear my eyes moving. While on the coach home, my friend had doodled on my arm, so I had some quite intricate patterning visible on my hand when I rolled my sleeves down. After about 3 hours on the bus, we stopped at some services for food and a toilet break. Important note, I was dressed in my full cadet uniform, which was camouflage combats, and smock and shiny black boots, complete with rank slide and beret. Cast. We've got Entitled Mom, the Karen. We've got me, a very tired cadet just wanting food. We've got Staff Sergeant, the most senior adult on the coach home, a large balding man with a very deep booming voice and a heart of gold. We've got W, the most senior cadet on the coach, a short, slim female who was the most aggressive person I've ever seen. The story. So there I was. The picture of an exhausted teenager stood with my friend in front of the pricing board for the McDonald's in the service station, trying to marshal my brain to do the math to work out how much what I wanted was going to cost, surrounded by people dressed in the same as me, in a similar state of exhaustion. I can vaguely hear someone complaining about all those people in the strident, petulant tones of a wild Karen, when all of a sudden the crowd parts like a shoal of fish in front of a roaming shark, leaving only me in the way. I feel a hand grab my shoulder and wrench me around then. I want 2 Big Mac meals with chocolate shakes and a chicken nugget Happy Meal with milk. Me. What? I realize that I'm stood in front of the prices and step to one side, mumbling an apology and going back to counting my money. The entitled mom grabs me again and this time shouts at me. Are you stupid? I said I want 2 Big Mac meals with chocolate shakes and a chicken nugget Happy Meal with milk. I stare at her blankly, then say, I'm not stupid. I don't work here. Entitled mom. I don't care. Get me my food now. At this point, I just kind of lose it. Miss, I don't know who the heck you think you're talking to, but don't you think it's a bit weird how the workers wear gray and I'm wearing camo? And you know, I've got drawings all over my arm. Or is your head so far gone you can't tell the difference? Now, I've had an exhausting weekend and I'm going to get my food. If you touch me again, I will defend myself. All the shouting had attracted the attention of W. W. Spooky Shadow Man, what's going on here? Me. I don't know, Sarn. I point to entitled mom. This woman just grabbed me and yelled at me, so I yelled back. I just want my food. W nodded, then gestured me towards the ordering counter. W. Ma'am, I'm gonna have to ask you to step away from my cadets. W placed herself between me and entitled mom. Entitled mom now loses her mind and goes into a screaming fit, yelling about disrespect and duty. W, not to be outdone, begins shouting back about how entitled mom should respect the cadets. Enter Staff Sergeant, who shouted loud enough that I could feel it through the floor. Staff Sergeant. Enough! Sergeant W, go order your food, now. He wheeled to entitled mom, who was shocked into silence. As for you, I suggest you wait elsewhere until we are all gone. Entitled mom. But I'm the victim. I saw everything. Now leave. Entitled mom scurries off, and that's the end of it. Staff Sergeant and W both checked if I was okay, then left me to my meal. Speaking of McDonald's, what's your favorite thing to get when you go there? Please let us know. Ew, I hate McDonald's. Just kidding, I'm making fun of the people who say that. Karen mother-in-law makes a rude announcement at my wedding. I, female 24, was married recently to my childhood sweetheart, male 24. Pretty small due to lockdown, but it was planned well in advance, so we didn't cancel, just kept it to family, and we planned to have a party with everyone else at a later date. For some background on my husband, his parents had him pretty young, 18 and 19 respectively, and he has a very close family. Our wedding reception was quite intimate, but we had the traditional speeches planned. Father of the bride, best man, husband's brother, groom. It was only the day before that my mother-in-law asked if she could have the mic to say a few words when we sat down to eat, and we said that would be great, but that she would need to go before my husband. Stupidly, we figured she would talk about us at our wedding, so we never asked what she planned to say. Big mistake. She announced that she's expecting a baby. She's still pretty young and very healthy, but it was a huge shock that just completely took over all night. What's even worse for me is that I am also pregnant and we plan to announce it at the wedding, but I told my husband to just leave it out of his speech. Everything felt a bit sour for me after that, so after the wedding, I didn't speak to my mother-in-law for a few days, and I got a call from her sister, a guest, to ask what was up. I explained that I felt like the attention was taken away from us without our permission. I would have said no, but still. And it was so unfair to spring that on us. Apparently, I ruined my own wedding because I was obviously upset about the good news and that I was being totally selfish. Maybe I was, but it was my wedding day that was already ruined by lockdown. Husband is on my side, though clearly feels a bit uncomfortable telling his mom that, which I get, as I don't want to have this argument directly with a pregnant woman either. The rest of the family is split down the middle, my side and his, because it was such a close family event anyway, and we all need some happiness. Now I'm starting to wonder if I overreacted and spoilt everything. Am I the jerk? Edit. Wow, I didn't expect this response. I'm really feeling the love, and thank you for all of the congratulations. I just wanted to answer some of the recurring comments and questions for info. Firstly, my husband was planning to speak to his mother in a week or two, just not straight away. A few reasons for this. He's angry, and he didn't want to blow up at a woman who's still around that sensitive pregnancy stage. He wanted time to cool off. He wanted to give her a chance to reflect and apologize on her own. I respect this decision 100%. He is my rock, and I will not hear a word against him. Secondly, my mother-in-law is only 42. I've seen a few comments that are quite shaming about her age, which are making me quite uncomfortable. She wants to be a grandmother, and I think finding out would have made her really happy. But I didn't want to attach how I felt in that moment to the announcement of my little one. On a similar note, I didn't want to be thinking about this after my wedding either, which is partly why I blocked her out. Thirdly, my petty revenge self would love her to have a baby shower, but I really doubt it. They're not such a big thing in the UK, and despite how she seems, she's actually really good about the restrictions that could still be in place. Her birthday is in May though, so I'm not ruling anything out. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her mother-in-law? Please let us know. What's with people who want to make big announcements at other people's weddings? I just don't get it. Am I the jerk for not following the rules of the neighborhood HOA? Neighbors in a homeowners association have issues that I don't follow the HOA rules, so the neighbors called me a jerk today. I bought a house 5 years ago that a real estate company built on speculation. Mine was the first house in a planned subdivision that they were going to build one house at a time or as people bought the individual tracts of land. The area kind of hit a boom period, and the other surrounding houses went up quick. In my contract to purchase my home, there was no homeowners association, and because I was here first, I don't have to join any if the other neighbors decide to create. I'm grandfathered in, is what it says in my contract. They all seem to forget this though, and continually try to give me HOA fines for breaking the rules of the HOA. This has ranged from days I have things delivered to my home, Amazon deliveries on Sundays, to when I cut my grass, to me having vehicles parked in my yard, and they aren't happy I own an extra tract of land because I bought two to have a bigger yard, so I could build a shooting range. I live in the South, this is not that uncommon. The recent event though that led to them calling me a jerk is they came over to ask me to remove the eyesore in front of my garage. Now, my home faces the road, not anyone else's house, so they don't have to stare at my garage, but apparently they still don't like it. I run a small hobby business of doing woodworking projects, and I have a shelf outside my garage door full of various pieces of treated lumber that I may use one day. It's not the neatest and cleanest area, but it's not a disheveled mess either. So I told them if they lightened up and just left me alone about all the other stuff, I'd consider moving my woodpile if it bothered them so much. They proceeded to tell me that I needed to address all the HOA issues and take care of the woodpile, along with stopping any deliveries on Sundays and getting my other truck out of my yard. They handed me what basically amounts to a ticket, and I trashed it and told them to get the heck off my property. They called me a jerk for my unreasonable behavior and told me they'd be back. Edit. Thanks everyone for the feedback. I've been in contact with a real estate attorney about deed and whether or not they can still attempt to legally enforce anything. Also, I've contacted one on creating a cease and desist. I do have cameras on my property. Edit. The vehicle in the yard is just one, and it's not an abandoned wreck. It's a fairly new truck that I use mostly on weekends. It sits there so I can get my other vehicles out easier. I do move it when I mow, so it's not just sitting there beside my driveway. Well, what do you think? Should OP follow those HOA rules or not? Please let us know.
I'd double down on them and buy another truck. And bruh, what's wrong with Amazon delivering on Sundays?
Get cracking on an essay about arthritis? Sure, Mom. I was reminiscing after I made the poor nurse shudder after cracking my knuckles at my doctor's appointment. It reminded me of a funny story with my mom. My mom absolutely loathed whenever I cracked my knuckles around her. I can't help myself. It's a bad habit, and once I start, I have to do all of them. She would constantly yell for me to stop. She would tell me it's bad for me and that I'm gonna get arthritis from doing that. One day at home, I started making my fingers into Rice Krispie treats. Snap, crackle, pop. Mom had enough and snapped herself. I want you to write a 2-page essay about cracking your fingers, including about arthritis. No more than double-space, 12-point font and all of that. I don't want you trying anything funny. Well, of course I'm going to try something funny. We wouldn't be here if I didn't, so cue that malicious compliance. I sat at the computer and pulled open Google and typed in how cracking your fingers does not cause arthritis. Turned out that was correct. I had plenty of sources, including one guy who cracked his knuckles regularly on one hand and not at all on the other. The other hand got arthritis, and the cracking hand did not. I included that. A few other truthful things, like it does cause a loss of grip, but ultimately it was about how it helped prevent arthritis in the long term. She took the essay without a word, skimmed it, and called it good to my surprise. Couldn't believe I got away with it. But I also remember that it got brought up in a conversation in my adult years before cancer claimed her. Mom, what did I tell you about cracking your knuckles? I had you write an essay on that and everything. Me, you didn't read that, did you? Mom, what makes you think that? Me, smiling like a fox in a henhouse. Because I wrote it on how it prevents arthritis. Mom, with surprised Pikachu face. No, you didn't. Me, cited sources and everything. Mom, you brat. Me, apple doesn't fall far from the tree. I loved my mom. Don't waste our time with unnecessary calls? Okay, I won't bother quitting then. So when lockdown hit in early 2020, I was laid off. I immediately began searching for a new job, and it took months to find one. Application after application, I heard nothing back from job after job. Until I finally heard back from a major fast food company. You've definitely heard of them. It was just a brief message in Indeed. I responded to the message and heard nothing back. It was a minimum wage job, but I needed the cash, so I called the restaurant. I got an employee on the other line and told them I had heard from a hiring manager and wanted the job. The employee said they'd pass along the message to the boss. A week passed and I heard nothing back on Indeed, so I called again, and a fourth time. Each time the result was the same, a lower employee saying they had passed the message higher up. So I went in myself to talk to the boss. The boss said he had gotten my messages and was planning on calling me back. He pretty much chewed me out for calling so much and for coming in without being invited. He said, "Don't waste our time with unnecessary calls. We'll call you." Despite this, I got the job. 2 weeks had passed at this point, and in that 2 weeks, a family member had passed. I was called away to a small funeral. In the job interview, I let my new boss know I would be gone for a few days right after my training. He okayed this and told me it was fine. I got through the training and went to the funeral. When I got back and I called the restaurant to ask them when I was on the schedule next, I got a lower employee who said they would ask the boss. Oh no. So after a couple of days of waiting, I call again. Then I stopped calling and began searching for a new job. I never officially quit. I got my measly paycheck from them, and they have not called me back after 4 months of waiting. Good thing they ghosted me, because a couple of weeks after all of this, I hit the jackpot. I now have a from-home sales job. I make more than minimum wage, and on top of that, I make commission. Also, my new boss cares about me and returns my calls. Life is good. I'm glad I took that guy's advice. Had I wasted my time with waiting, I would have missed a good deal. Am I the jerk for wanting to be home while my roommate's ex-boyfriend gets his furniture? My roommate, female 24, dumped her boyfriend, male 30, of a year on Saturday. Currently on the lease for the house is me, female 24, my girlfriend, female 25, and my roommate. Her boyfriend moved in with us last summer but wasn't on the initial lease and did not want to be added to it when we renewed in March. We were all fine giving him as much time as he needed to get out because he's sad as all heck. But on Monday morning at about 3 a.m., he lost his crap on my roommate for saying she didn't see them getting back together in the future. I guess that part had not been clear to him up until that point. He immediately woke up everyone, screaming and calling her names, and we shouldn't live with someone like her while packing up all of his stuff. Not fun considering we all had work early in the morning and I live with pilots who kind of need to be well rested in order to function well at their job. Fast forward to today. He tells us he's coming by tomorrow morning to get the rest of the furniture and he doesn't want any of us home. That wouldn't be a problem because we all have work, but it just seems sketchy that he specifically wanted nobody home. I have a dog and a cat that was missing for 2 weeks because he left the sliding glass door open a few months ago that I really don't want getting out, not to mention all of my stuff. He didn't ever seem like the kind of guy who would be crazy and steal or destroy anything, but he's obviously extremely emotional and that affects your decision-making process. I messaged him asking if he could wait until 3 when my girlfriend is off of work so she could be there to watch the animals since he probably will have the door or garage open to get his furniture. He said he would be out before then and not to worry about the pets. I literally begged him over text to work with us and coordinate on any time when somebody could be there, and he's adamant about tomorrow morning. I just don't have a good feeling, and I brought up changing the locks tonight. My roommate thinks it's a good idea, but he's been really mean to her the past couple of days, and I think she probably just wants to be a jerk back. My girlfriend thinks we should just take the animals to a friend's tomorrow and let him do what he wants. Am I the jerk if I change the locks? I know that he'll be upset if he shows up and his key doesn't work, but if I warn him, I really think he'll just bring his toolkit and get into the house one way or another. Update. Thanks to everyone who told me I wasn't the jerk. I think that's true. We told him we were going to be kind and give him the courtesy of not seeing us. My friends Ryan and Paul are over at my house right now to let him in, and they know exactly what is and isn't his. We stayed up last night for the locksmith my landlord sent over. She was very understanding and wanted them changed ASAP and gathered a few small things he missed, some kitchen stuff and toiletries, and put them on one of his pieces of furniture and moved everything into the garage. He got there at about 8 a.m. and claimed not to have his key. Shocker. And they told him not to worry about it as all of the locks had been changed. We live in a single-family house, and there's a front door, back door, side door, garage entry point, and a door in the garage that goes into the laundry room, so the locksmith was there for a while. I think that is that, and I really hope everyone is happy with the solution one day because it gave me a heck of a headache. I just have to see an ID. You don't have to convince me you're telling the truth. I used to install cable and internet for the local cable company. The company has the same name as a college football team in Ohio with red as their school color. This is my last job of the day, and it's only a modem swap. I swap out their outdated modem for a new one, copy and paste their Wi-Fi name and password onto the new one, and that's it. The house is massive and in a really nice neighborhood. Get to the door, ring the bell, and the customer's son is there. Dude looks young, so I asked to see an ID to make sure he's 18 or older. Company policy, 90% of the time, I don't ask if the customer looks old enough. The son gets argumentative right away and starts telling me how he's in college. He's actually 21, and he even has his CCW. And I tell him the policy and that he just looks young, and I'm only covering my butt. This isn't good enough. He says hold on and calls his mom, who is the actual account holder, and on her way home. I see where he gets his attitude from when he puts his mom on speakerphone, and she tells me how she knows the owner of the company. She's only 5 minutes away, and that I'll be sorry if I leave before she gets there. She tells me she made that appointment and made sure someone would be there and that I should just do my job if I like having one. I just say, okay, I'll just get started. I head into the basement and notice that their existing modem also does phone. Their work order, on the other hand, says to replace it with an internet-only modem. So most people that still have a landline for phone only do so for their home security system. And when I remove the phone modem and put in a non-phone modem, you no longer have a security system. By the time mom gets home, I'm all finished and the son is already connected to the Wi-Fi. I apologize, have her sign the work order, and quickly drive off. Maybe 10 minutes later, dispatch calls me and tells me how the customer has a security system and that they were supposed to get a phone modem, and would I go back? Apparently, the customer security system was blaring and wouldn't shut off. I explained the situation and how the work order didn't say anything about a phone modem. She understands and says she will have another tech head over there when someone is free. I gave the tech a heads up, and he didn't go over there until late evening. Never heard anything else about it. I never did anything wrong. Am I the jerk for telling my sister I'm not going to help her with her house after she let my niece break our family video game console? My sister and her husband fell on hard times during lockdown and had to put a lot of money into some issues that came up with their house. She asked me if I could help them repaint a couple of the affected rooms, and I said yes. I have experience there and don't mind helping. I was due to help next week, but last week, while she and my niece, her daughter, were visiting, she let niece break our family PS5. So what happened? Sister and niece came over. My son was playing the PS5 in the living room. I went to grab something my sister asked for. When I came back, the kids were fighting and my son was upset because the PS5 was broken. My sister was standing there watching the whole thing. I asked what happened and the kids were talking over each other. My sister wasn't saying anything. Niece said my son wouldn't share and he pulled too hard. My son told me he was going to let her play once he got the character safe because he was in the middle of a section, and she lost it and kicked the console over and stomped it with her foot and pulled on the cable really hard. My sister just kept saying my son wouldn't let her daughter play and that he should have let her play. I told her that didn't give niece the right to break it. She told me it's reckless letting kids my son's age play. She told me niece didn't do it, but then niece proceeded to kick it in front of me, at which point I said she needed to leave. Luckily, I was able to get it repaired, but it cost me money, and my sister just said they didn't need to pay and that it was my fault. I told her then that I'm not helping her paint now, that I am not giving up my free labor for her after she did nothing while an expensive and hard-to-get console was broken. She told me I couldn't do that, and it was me being petty, mean, a jerk, and a bad sister, and that I should be more understanding. She told me it wasn't her job to supervise the kids, and I shouldn't have taken the fight out on her. Am I the jerk? I only question it because I know they've been really hard up after all of this and have unfinished things still because of the financial stresses. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her sister? Please let us know.
Your sister's a Karen and her kid is an entitled brat. I hope you cut them out of your life.
I don't care that your mom is hurt. You need to get your priorities straight. So this happened about a year or so ago, but I was reminded about it earlier today while speaking to my old boss on Facebook. So here are the people involved. We've got me, of course. We've got Dan, my old boss, name changed, of course. And we've got Karen, his boss, again, name changed. I used to work as the residential manager of a house for people with special needs. I had previously worked in direct care and managed a house with a different agency, but moved to this new agency for a variety of different reasons. I've always worked in this field, I still do, and I consider it my calling. It's very difficult work managing the house, as not only do you have to remember everything about each of the residents, referred to as the guys, but you also have to set the staffing schedule. Now, according to Karen, I had been hired to fix this house up. For a bit of background on the house, it had only been open for about a year, and the guys had just met when they moved in, so they didn't know each other very well and were constantly making each other angry. Most staff members weren't sure how to work with them due to the lack of training and lack of understanding of their unique personalities, so they just kinda let the guys do whatever they wanted. Beyond that, there was no accountability. For example, there was a house credit card that was to be used for food and another to be used for items like soap and cleaners. There was no way to keep track of purchases because staff hadn't been trained on how to sign the cards in and out, how to store receipts, and what to do with the card logs. Needless to say, the house was a mess from a managerial standpoint when I got there, and they had gone through 6 managers in the 1 year they had been open. As soon as I took the position, I began learning everything I could about the guys, from parents, all documentation, and contacts with their previous staff, while training my staff on what I had learned. I also set concrete processes of documenting money spent, med administration, and training logs, because yes, Karen hadn't instituted any training logs, so there was no proof that training had even happened. All of this work helped the house a lot, and this set us up in a good place, but it came at the price of almost all of my free time. Between all of the work I put in setting up systems in the house and all of the forced overtime I had to work, I ended up working between 70 and 100 hours every week, without any overtime pay. Karen said that she would be there to step in if Dan and I needed something, but never once helped. This is important. Now, all of that was basically just to say that I put in work for that job. Here's where Karen comes in. I want to start by saying that Karen is beautiful. Like, really beautiful. So beautiful, in fact, that her boyfriend in corporate just had to give her a director's position as soon as they started dating. That's a different story, though. Anyway, Karen had a habit of flirting and making it very obvious that she was doing so. She would drop things on the ground while speaking to me and then bend down slowly in front of me to pick it up. I never complained, but it did seem a bit unprofessional. At first, I thought that she was being overly friendly. Then I realized that she was hitting on me and using it to get me to do more work around the job. I'm used to that kind of thing happening in this field, but Karen is by far the worst offender. It kind of came to a head one day when she made a comment about bigger guys being her type. Being a bigger guy, I kind of picked up on it, and I made a comment about the girl I had just started dating at the time. She laughed it off and said that there was no title involved in my relationship, so she didn't care. But I said that I did. She backed off, but she was never really friendly with me again. Things started to go downhill once she realized that she couldn't control me like that, which was fine with me. Things were calm and the house was running smoothly, with normal hiccups, but fate likes to strike at the worst times. I got a call from my mom basically as soon as I got to work one day at like 8 a.m. saying that she had tripped over my ridiculously hyper dog and fell, and she was having a hard time breathing. I called Karen to tell her I was leaving, and then I rushed home. You'd think that someone would respond with empathy, but I was met with a cold, "You'd better be back later today." Okay, whatever. She's probably having a bad morning. I take my mom to the walk-in orthopedic clinic about a half hour away, and after a 2-hour wait, they finally saw her and ordered x-rays. Problem is that they don't do x-rays on site, so we had to go to another orthopedic clinic to get them done in red. I called Karen on the way to the second clinic and filled her in. She told me that I had work to do and that I'd better get back as soon as I could. After another half-hour-long drive and another 2 hours waiting for the x-rays to be done, we sit and wait for them to call us back in to have them read. This is where it goes south. Karen calls me and I run outside to take the call. Here's an approximation of the conversation. Karen:
Where the heck are you?
Me: I'm at the doctor with my mom, waiting for x-rays to be… Karen cuts me off.
You said you would be quick.
Me: I had no idea it would take this long.
Save it. You're probably just trying to get a free day off. You really have to get your priorities straight. You have no idea how lazy you look.
Me, yelling now. So, I work 90-hour weeks and I'm lazy? I fixed the mess you allowed to build up and can't take my mother to the doctor for an emergency without being yelled at? Karen:
Don't you?
Me, cutting her off. No, I think you're right. I have to prioritize. Consider this my 2-week notice.
But
Click. I was shaking, but it felt great. She wanted me to prioritize, so I did. The job was suddenly much less important to me. I then found out that my mom had cracked her sternum and bruised a rib. Less great. In speaking with Dan about the situation recently, I found out some fun things. My replacement has no idea what they're doing. They have no idea how to relate to the guys, and the staff doesn't respect them at all. My replacement's incompetence cost Dan his job. All of the work I had done to set up the systems for money management and medication administration was just tossed because replacement didn't want to keep up with it. So everything is back to the way it was before I got there. Half of the staff left, and the new staff have no idea what they're doing because there is, once again, no training for them. It's gratifying to know that the work I was doing was so necessary, but I do feel bad about the guys and think about them often. Edit. Thanks for all the comments, everyone. A lot of you are concerned about the guys and say I should report the situation. I've mentioned on a few comments that I reported everything when I first got to that job and that I'm going to report what I know now because it's just not right or legal. Thanks for all the kind words and support. Karen mother demands the password to see my grades. Little bit of backstory. The story revolves around me, 17 female, and my mom, 36 female, who I will call Entitled Mom. Entitled Mom and my dad went their separate ways when I was very little. They weren't married, and I went to live with my grandparents on my dad's side. Entitled Mom would sometimes spend a few days with us and then go who knows where. Around 2 years ago, she left and didn't come back. I see her maybe once a month. In my country, we have a website that shows your grades, exams, and stuff like that. You have your email and a password. I never gave Entitled Mom my password because she never asked for it, and I didn't think that she'd even need to see my grades. No one except me has my password. So I was doing my homework, and I got a call from Entitled Mom. That's rare, so I picked it up. This is approximately the conversation. Entitled Mom.
Hey, OP, how are you?
Me. Good, how about you?
A little bit tired, but fine.
Me. Good to hear. Do you need anything? Entitled Mom.
Well, I just wanted to know how you are and ask you to give me your password to your grades.
Me. What? Why?
I lost the password I had, so can you give it to me again?
Me. What are you talking about? Why do you even have my password?
Well, you typed it in on my phone once years ago and it stayed there. I changed my phone, so I need you to give it to me again.
Me. No, you will not have my password. That's my personal information, and I don't feel comfortable by you looking at my grades and exams.
Oh, come on. It's just grades. And besides, I am your mom. I have the right to see your grades. It's not that big of a deal.
Me. It is. You can't look at my grades. It's my personal information, and I don't want you anywhere near it. And besides, you aren't really a good mom to begin with.
Oh, are we going there now? Well, you shouldn't complain that much. After all, I live the life you wanted to have.
A life I wanted? Are you nuts? I can't believe you would say that to a minor. Do you hear yourself? Are you crazy?
Why are you yelling? If it's about your grades.
Me. This is not about my grades. This is about my private information that you have no right to. You are a bad parent, and I'm so ashamed to be related to you. I'm going to change the password, and goodbye. I stopped the call then, and I changed the password right away. This type of conversation is not unusual for her, but she really made me mad. That's all. I just wanted to share my story. What would you do in this situation? Would you go ahead and give her the password or not? Please let us know.
I'd give her a restraining order is what I'd give her.
Revenge from beyond the grave. Well, beyond retirement. This is not my story. This happened at work to one of the older guys who was just about to retire as I was just joining the company. We were intended to overlap only by a few months. Luckily for me, I worked with him for a couple of years. Background. I worked for a company making test equipment, mostly in the avionics field. We made a test system for an old inertial navigation system. The IST, Inertial System Tester, basically moves the sensor through all of the 3 axes in precise order, speeds and combinations, and verifies that it reads correctly. The test system was ancient. I mean really ancient, even for the 1980s. It had a magnetic core memory, front panel programming, paper tape loader, and a huge hard disk that was massive, bigger than 18 inches, metal plate that held about 1 kilobyte. It was all blink and lichten, clicking and whizzing noises like a futuristic computer from the 60s TV shows. Our hero, who we will call Dave, was the only person in the company who knew how this thing really worked, and he had worked on it for decades. The Air Force was replacing the navigation system with a new one, and so the test systems would be scrapped. Dave had less than 2 years to go before retirement, and so he was on a bit of a shaky peg when the project ended. Dave was also a stereotypical engineer, very good at his job, very low social skills, and brutally honest. He had made enemies, but because the company needed him for the IST, and he knew everyone who dealt with the system from our company to the various air bases and air forces and civilians who used the system, they tolerated his manner. Dave was often called out to bases around the world to help them diagnose a problem. He was very, very good at his job, and the air forces respected him for it. Due to the imminent scrapping of the inertial guidance system, Dave was offered early retirement and took it. As the contract was in its dying days, the project store was emptied of stacks of fanfold paper, paper tape, and other bits of useless rubbish. Due to his connections, Dave knew that the replacement system was delayed by a year, and so the IST service life was going to be extended. Dave knew this before the company did. Dave also knew that some component suppliers who were contracted to support the IST had stopped production and scraped the old manufacturing kit. This meant that there would be a refurb contract coming to allow the IST to use modern discs to replace the obsolete dinner plate discs. Dave knew this, but Dave retired anyway. That was the malicious compliance. A few weeks later, a contract request came through requesting that we modify the system tester to use a more modern technology, 1.44 megabyte disks, and support the system for another year with options to renew the contract annually. As it was a simple add-on contract, it was agreed with little oversight. Now the panic set in. Nobody knew how to code the system. It was written in Fortran and the 1960s version at that, and also some machine code for an ancient processor that nobody had ever used. The majority of us had never seen the spider's web that was magnetic core memory. We didn't know where the source code had been archived, and we didn't have a paper tape punching machine. We eventually found a printout of the source's code and some handwritten annotations and had no clue if that was the installed software version or not. Config Control Department did not give a hoot about a 60s era system that had remained unchanged for over a decade, and they didn't know much about it. But Dave knew, and Dave was waiting for the phone call to ask. Dave agreed to come back part-time as a contractor at a very high hourly rate for the duration of the contract. The contract was extended another 6 months, sometime after, taking Dave almost to his retirement date, but with a huge amount of money in the last 18 months. I liked Dave. He taught me a lot. We eventually found an old tape punching machine in a local newspaper of all places. They used the tape to transfer the article text from the reporter's consoles to the compositing machine. Just for the geeks, we replaced the huge disk with a 1.44 megabyte disk, basically the same as an Amiga, and a single board computer and some custom electronics, all to pretend that it was an ancient slow disk. Basically, we embedded a computer that was several orders of magnitude more powerful than the host system to pretend to be an ancient slow mechanical drive in a system with a clock rate as slow as a heartbeat. Edit. To clarify on why the system was so out of date, since a lot of people are wondering why. This was a custom project designed to a specific set of requirements. The customer owned a lot of the IP and owned the rights so that we could not sell it without their specific approval. The only people who used it were the armed forces and some civilians that were approved by the customer. We were not permitted to make any changes. The customer operated on a "if it's not broken, then don't fix it" principle. On occasion, the customer would come back and ask for a modification, usually because a part was going obsolete, but the supply of critical parts were ensured by contracting the supply to maintain the supply of doing a lifetime buy of spares. As soon as the contracts ended and suppliers were desperate to dump the old tooling and generally refused a contract extension. To clarify on why retiring was malicious compliance, we went through a lot of compulsory redundancies. The 80s in the UK was not a good time for employment. With the project coming to an end, we knew it, redundancies were coming. If you are 60 plus, you are generally offered early retirement, but if you refuse, you are made redundant. Technically, it is your choice, but you are out either way. Either you jump or we push you. Jumping makes them look better in terms of redundancy totals. If you are made redundant, you are generally not re-employed due to the risk of corporate revenge sabotage. If you retire, it is deemed to be on good terms and you can come back. For Dave, financially either was good, but choosing retirement allowed him the option of coming back, and Dave knew he was coming back. Am I the jerk for kicking my boyfriend's friend out and making him homeless? I, 22 female, and my boyfriend, 24 male, decided to let his friend, 24 male, stay here a while because he was homeless living in a tent when we picked him up. The agreement was a few days, but it's turned into a month now. We have a 1-bedroom house and a 3-year-old stepson. It's already cramped. Things were okay, except for the fact that I am a big clean freak. I just like to keep my house clean. I deep clean every weekend. My dishes are done and my kitchen cleaned and wiped down after every meal. My biggest thing is the floors being clean because I hate walking around with no socks or shoes and things getting stuck on my feet. I grew up in a house that was disgusting. My house being messy gives me anxiety because of this. I'm in therapy. He got a job mowing. Great, he's on the track to get out of here. It's a rule in our house that if you aren't a guest, you take your shoes off at the door. Our 3-year-old takes them off when he walks inside. Close family visiting takes them off when they come inside. I've taught my 8-month-old puppy to wipe her feet off on the mat outside. He never takes his shoes off. I asked him nicely the first 3 weeks. Since he mows, his shoes are caked in grass. He never cleans up after himself, whether it's the floor or his dishes or his own dirty clothes. When I mention it, he doesn't even get the broom and clean it up. I've swept the entire house every day since he started staying here. Yesterday he walked inside, stomped all around the hardwood floors. The whole house is hardwood and tile. When I came out of my room and saw this, I raised my voice and said, "Walk outside, take your shoes off, pick them up, bring them inside, and put them on the mat. It's not that hard. My 3-year-old and my dog can do it, why can't you?" He said, You're going to have to remind me every day because I forget. It's grass. You don't have to be a jerk.
I then told him to get his crap and get out. He's disrespectful, a slob, and I don't need to remind a grown man to take his shoes off every day. I don't have to remind a 3-year-old or an 8-month-old dog. He got upset and yelled crap and threw all his stuff outside. My boyfriend got home and I told him he called me a name, and he went outside and they were yelling. I just feel bad because now he's homeless. My boyfriend understands and doesn't want him here if he's going to disrespect me while living here and eating our food for free. Am I the jerk? Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or their friend? Please let us know. No wonder my guy was living in a tent. License email mailboxes for all former employees? I don't recommend it, but okay. Edit for clarity. Bad IT director had a few nicknames, like IT Director, Dental Commander, IT Commando, Computer Commando, IT Joe, IT Boy, Hacker God, Hacker Dude, and IT Bob. These were all real nicknames we gave to the guy as we dealt with his antics. Sorry if confusing, but personally my favorite part of dealing with him. Everyone else as named. A few years ago at my previous job, I was a senior technician at a managed service provider of IT services. We were a small company and were often yes men to just about anybody who would offer us money in exchange to their requests. The owner of our company would not push back against those that made crazy demands, overly cheap, or even overly disrespectful clients. This led us to oftentimes doing tasks out of our normal scope, at cost, and a lot of times being cussed at for no good reason. Our primary services included on-site service and support and cloud hosting of in-house and third-party solutions, one of which was Microsoft 365, which obviously is very commonly used for email services. We would keep living knowledge base pages on each company, their services, environment info, and even policies of which different companies may demand, like only follow through with support requests from office managers, or if admin access is needed for this particular cluster of servers, contact Jim. One of our clients was a dental company that was of decent size. They had about 10 locations and were growing. Customers loved them, and we often took pleasure going on site, as it was heaven dealing with such polite people in contrast to what we had to deal with most of the time otherwise. They would even demand us to have some lunch if we happened to be on site during their Friday luncheon. It was great. They used 365 services and only used E3 licensing for their users, which was total overkill. $20 per user per month when most employees barely even checked email, let alone made an Excel doc. They wouldn't take our recommendation to go use the essentials at $5 per user instead, unless it was an office manager or headquarters worker. Also, they had a decently high turnover rate as it was a college-type town and a lot of students would work there in one of the various positions to make decent pay and good experience while attending school. They would come and go. The IT director, literally only a title anyone can wear nowadays, was pretty bad at his job. Of this company called us one day yelling because there were a bunch of mailboxes that were not licensed. We tried to explain that these were mailboxes that were converted to shared of employees that had left. Doing so allows us to remove the license of the mailbox while keeping all of the mail intact and very easily accessible if we needed to delegate access to someone who needs to review. You basically get to archive the mailbox for free. He barely let us even speak, and the tech who actually took the call was flustered, so I took it over completely. Using my best, well-seasoned customer service charm, I tried to explain to him the same, yet to no avail. They had 180-ish unused mailboxes that he wanted us to convert to a user box and add one of those premium "I'm drinking Stella in a fancy glass" licenses at $20 a pop per month. He resorted to personally insulting me, telling me I'm a tech guy who got promoted too fast and I should try a 4-year school next time, and demanded it be done right away with no specifics on how it be done. Bless your heart, man. Okay, we'll do it. Luckily, we record the calls. Also, I'll make note, this company has a policy that we are not allowed to use PowerShells, which for those that don't know is a terminal that allows us to perform action by command line. We can write scripts for special tasks or even do things in bulk, saving lots of time. I knew this very well, and I begged them repeatedly to let us use PowerShell in the past to no avail. So we ordered pizza in the office and got to work. Converted every last mailbox to normal and licensed it. We even converted a spider into a god as he struck fear in us with his hairy legs and many ears. We weren't worthy. After we finished, We even had a contest to see who could frisbee off his 2003 discs the furthest, since we had a binder full of them, as well as a few other goofy games for about a half hour before we dipped out. It was a fun late night at work in the end. A month or so rolls by, and our accountant had sent out all of the invoices to our customers on that fine second Monday of the month. Our dental commander called us at 12:03 p.m., 3 minutes after he would have gotten his, and he had blown a head gasket. He finally saw the bill for the additional 180 E3 licenses, plus taxes and fees. He was threatening to sue if me and my 2 coworkers or our boss didn't fix it. One thing about our pushover owner is that he didn't take kindly to someone insulting his workers directly, as he took it personally since he interviewed everyone himself. He listened to the call recording after we begged him to do so. He did not like what he heard from IT Commando. He didn't give in, and he even added a little razzle-dazzle that we had never seen before. He even noted that because it was a written policy that we can't use PowerShell, we should have billed the request as a project, since they demanded it be done in such a short time and was not a normal support request. In order for us to remove the licenses, they would also have to have this done at the same project rate, and they would have to pay for the bill as well as the 2 projects now, or we wouldn't touch it, period. Our project rate was $125 an hour for junior techs and $175 an hour for senior techs. It was going to be about 2 hours per head, all at the senior rate for each leg of the ordeal, so about 12 hours all in all, as there were 3 of us. Computer Commander didn't know that the owner of his company and ours were moderately close friends for nearly 2 decades, would occasionally play golf together, and whatever company owners do when not at the office. The dental company owner and IT Joe came to our office immediately. Before allowing the discussion to proceed far past hello, our company owner played both calls on full blast over one of those Logitech 2.1 systems. It was loud. Dental company owner was absolutely shocked at what was heard, as this guy was always looked at in high standards. Hacker God was pale white as he sat there and did not move a muscle. He immediately told IT Boy to call an Uber back to the headquarters and to stand by in the conference room. He wouldn't be driving back with him. He apologized profusely to us techs, nearly in tears it seemed. He wrote a check for one of the projects and the bill. We agreed to undo the work for free, as he was a really good client of ours and was always nice. He gave us each $100 Visa gift cards the next week and bought us lunch in our own office a few times, all out of his own pocket. Hacker Dude was fired as soon as the owner of the company got back to the office, and he entrusted us to take care of his IT systems while he found his replacement, who was ultimately better in every way. They took every recommendation of ours, including reducing the license types for the majority of their workers, while confused as to why this was ever a debated topic. This is the one company I truly miss at my last job. A good client. Am I the jerk for threatening to move out if our parents have another baby? So I'm 18 female, and my mother married my stepfather about 1 year ago. I have a stepsister, 22 female, and a stepbrother, 14 male. Our parents set us down recently and said they're thinking about having another baby together. Me and my step-siblings were against it. None of us want a baby in the house. Parents said they were going to start trying anyway, so my sister said she's going to start looking for apartments with her boyfriend. I said I would move back to my grandparents' house, and brother said he will move in with his aunt. Well, parents didn't like this and got mad and said we can't control if they want to expand their family or not. We said that we won't stop them, but we don't want to live and help with the baby. Here are our concerns. If they have another kid, they might not be able to pay for mine and my sister's college fully. They said we would have to babysit quite often since neither pair of grandparents can help. Mine are too old for that and have no interest, and my siblings' grandma can't be trusted. They don't trust the daycare. I don't think my mom's job offers maternity leave, so someone would have to stay home with the baby. Probably my sister or me. Brother is barely capable of taking care of himself. None of us have any experience with kids, none at all. They also want to turn one room into the nursery. There are 4 bedrooms in the house, so 2 of us would have to share. None of us want to. They're both in their 40s. Stepdad is close to 50. We're not saying older people shouldn't have kids, but we think it will be too much for them to handle, honestly. So, are we the jerks here for kind of preventing them from having another kid? I know people will ask, but where I live, people usually live with their parents until they marry. So, don't recommend moving out on my own. It's not really possible at all. My sister will be moving out in 2 years when she finishes college, and I will be moving to another city for college when I finish high school in 2 years as well.
Well, who do you agree with? OP or the parents? Please let us know.
This is a tough one. Can't wait to read your comments.
Employer doesn't want me to waste 2 hours? They waste 40 instead. A number of years ago, I worked for a small, fairly local outsourcing company. I was assigned to work with a particularly high-profile client of theirs. The client's office was just around the corner from my employer, but my employer insisted that I remain within their own offices to work, so the client provided me with a laptop to use that connected to their network remotely. It's important to note that whilst the clients were decent, my employer had a totally fear-based management culture. The managers wanted eyes on the employees at all times because they assumed people could slack off given half the chance. After almost a year of working there, I got a call from the client notifying me that my client-given laptop needed some critical updates and I would have to bring it in so IT could apply the updates locally. All sounded very reasonable to me. I brought this to the attention of my manager and advised I would be out of the office for a while so I could take my laptop to the client site around the corner for critical updates. No bueno. My manager ignored everything about the critical updates part and focused instead on the out of our office for 2 hours part. They insisted that they knew I had a remote connection to the client's office, so any updates could be applied without me needing to leave and take my laptop anywhere. I got the impression they thought I was lying to get some free time off. I decided this had the potential to teach my employer/the managers a great lesson about not trusting their own employees. So, like the model employee I was, I shrugged, "You know best, boss," and complied with their request, continuing working as usual. Until the following morning, when I switched on my laptop and nothing would work. The machine refused to connect to the client's remote network. The various software applications I used for my job also wouldn't run due to the lack of connection. Error messages flashed up on every file I tried to access, warning that my credentials had been blocked. I was left holding a very expensive brick. My manager was livid when I explained I couldn't do any work. They clicked around on my laptop trying to fix it themselves, but there was no other solution to be had. They sent me around the corner to the client's office so I could hand in my laptop to IT. I took my time enjoying a coffee and breakfast in the client's on-site cafe while IT worked on my laptop. But when I went to check on it after an hour, I believe the client IT's manager's words were, "It's done for." The critical update mentioned before was intended to repair something wrong with the way the remote connections worked. When my machine didn't get the update, it lost connection with the client's network and immediately locked me out of everything, effectively blacklisting my credentials. IT manager explained that they would have to build me an entirely new machine and set up new accounts, a process that would take about a week to ensure everything filtered through correctly and could be tested. The client was fine and understanding about it, but when I returned empty-handed to my employer's office, my manager got extremely snotty with me and insisted I still had to work somehow. I pointed out that I had no client laptop to work on, so instead of sending me home, they forced another employee to share her computer with me. For the next week, me and my colleague shared her computer, 1 hour each at a time. As I had no access to any of my files, client data, etc., all I could do was the barest minimum of work, sending a few emails from my colleague's account. After a week, I got my new client laptop, and things went back to normal. But the week of sharing meant my employer had lost around 40 hours of productivity from 2 employees. The shared pain of the experience with my colleague brought us closer together, and when my employee lost their contract with my client a few years later, she helped me get a new job with my employer's competitor. Am I the jerk for telling my sister it's not my job to cater to her after she told me she wanted my help? So I, 25 female, have a younger sister, 19. Growing up as the oldest in my family was not so great. My parents really babied my sister and expected me to sacrifice for her. If they wanted to go out, I couldn't. I needed to babysit. If she didn't want to go grocery shopping, I had to stay home with her, and they would even make me leave friends' houses early for it. Like one time I was working on a school project at a friend's house, and my mom shows up and tells me I need to stay home with my sister. They wouldn't let any extended family take me out for my birthday unless they took both of us, but she could do one-on-one stuff with them for her birthday. The worst one for me was one of my friends bought me a ticket to see our favorite band for my 15th birthday, and my parents okayed it and everything. But then they got invited to a last-minute wedding, and because my sister didn't want to go to the wedding with them,
I wasn't allowed to go to the concert, and I had to stay home and babysit, and my friends ended up taking someone else, and I missed out on my own birthday present. I admit, I was pretty bitter for over a year about that. Another thing was, if she needed to do something for school and they couldn't help, they'd make me help her, even when it was something she was supposed to do alone. They would say it was my job as her big sister to help. I also had to help tutor her in subjects and deal with her not caring, and my parents would just say my sister deserved help. When I moved out, there was a pretty big dispute in the family because some relatives stopped communicating with my parents because of how they treated me. Anyway, I tried to keep something of a relationship with my sister without being her third parent for a few years, but once she turned 18 and we had talked about her not expecting me to drop everything for her whenever she wanted, and she continued expecting that, I got frustrated. And then she told me that she wanted my help with money and shopping for groceries because her roommates are tired of her not doing anything, and I kind of snapped. I didn't yell or anything, but I did tell her it wasn't my job to cater to her every whim, and that she should learn how to do stuff without me because I'm tired of her asking for stuff from me but never offering me anything in return. She started to cry and told me I didn't need to take my issues out on her, and that of course she asked because it's my job as her older sister, and so I wouldn't yell at her. I disconnected the call. She called me a jerk. Am I the jerk? Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her little sister? Please let us know. The parents are the biggest jerks of them all. They're the ones who created this little monster. Am I the jerk for telling my brother it's 100% his fault he wasn't promoted? I have an older brother who's a lawyer and works at a pretty big law firm. He was on partner track, the promotions for which come in 3 waves. He found out he didn't make the first wave. And while he could make junior partner in the next year, if you don't make it in the first wave, the chances of making senior partner or higher at his firm are slim. He was ranting last night about how the guy who did make partner only did so because he was popular and sociable, and that his billing was actually a little below my brother's. I told him if that was true, it's no wonder the firm chose the other guy. See, my brother can be a little aloof and doesn't believe in extracurricular activities. For example, I remember him telling me about a first-year tradition for all the new associates to pick a nice restaurant for dinner, organize a private room, and foot the bill for all of the associates and their manager. At the end of the night, the manager would expense the meal to the company. Well, my brother decided he couldn't be bothered with sorting a whole dinner, so he had McDonald's delivered. Another instance is his firm has a thing where, before lockdown, the firm used to head to a local pub at the end of each month. And my brother has consistently mentioned how he never went because he wasn't contractually obliged to. I asked him if he was really surprised when given the choice that they wanted to promote the guy who bought into the company culture, even if his billing was a bit lower. I also asked who he'd rather work with, the guy you could share a pint with, or the employees who only clock in and out. My brother got super offended and left the Zoom call, and my parents also think I was being harsh rather than supportive. I responded by saying he shouldn't expect sympathy when clearly it was his own doing. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his brother? Please let us know. Some people just can't handle the truth. Your brother sounds like one of them. My wife is demanding to name our son Frodo. My wife and I are expecting our firstborn together. We haven't discussed names until we found out the gender. It's a boy, and when the family found out, we received many name suggestions and ideas from both families. Some were pretty cool and modern boy names. However, when I asked my wife when we were going to discuss the name of our son and talk about the cool ideas our families sent, she told me not to bother because she's already had a name in mind and felt strongly about it. I was upset, obviously, since she said she already decided, so that was selfish in my opinion. I asked what the name was, and she told me Frodo. The name immediately rang a bell. My wife is a huge fan of Lord of the Rings, and her favorite character is Frodo. She went on about how cool and unique the name is, but I really didn't think she was being serious. She said I should watch the movie and see how the name sounds and I'd love it. I said no way. She asked why not. The movie is popular and so is the name. To me, that's the problem. Don't get me wrong, but it's not a name we should go with. I mean, I already looked up the name and its meaning, but was mentioned that it will always be attached to that character from Lord of the Rings. To me, that was an instant no. My wife said I was being narrow-minded and called me controlling, only because I told her this name is my hill to die on. Our son deserves a reasonable name and not to be attached to a character from a movie.
I snapped and told her she could love the character all she wants, but choosing a name for our son is a serious matter and we both should get a say. She had a meltdown, gets mad, and claims I'm treating her as an incubator. She then went to tell my parents about how unreasonable I was being, and they got mad only because we haven't considered the name suggestions they sent. So now I find myself arguing with my wife and my family. Her sister told me that my wife gets 80% say since she's the mother, and I needed to stop stressing her out like that. My brother suggested I stop arguing with my wife about it and go behind her back and put the name I want on the birth certificate, but I wouldn't do that. That's not going to solve anything. The argument continues, and I think I might be the jerk for still arguing about it, knowing that my wife is stressed out, but I just don't think it's fair. Am I the jerk here? Am I overreacting? Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his wife? Please let us know. Something tells me this guy's in for a really rough marriage. Treat me like garbage? I will hack revenge. Background: I'm 30. I'm a cybersecurity expert and a systems architect. We joke about me being a systems and security architect, and I have a solid background in electrical engineering. I have a background in karate, Krav Maga, and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and I weigh about 90 kilograms. I recently moved to a new flat about 7 months ago. I work from home. I had the bad idea to let others in my complex know that I had tools for basic maintenance, like screwdrivers, drills, stuff like that, and I let my neighbors know that for small things I could help. I just wanted to be a good neighbor. The trigger. Everything was fine until one day I was woken up at 7 a.m. by my phone constantly ringing as the WhatsApp chat for the complex was on fire. Apparently, the main gate was not working at all, and all the neighbors already tried calling the usual guy that fixes this kind of stuff. But, duh, he was not answering. Probably still asleep, just saying. I put on some work pants, my mask, and went outside with my screwdriver's bag to unlock the gate to let people out. Introducing the guy from the attic, 4th floor. The typical 50-ish man with his Porsche Carrera that wants anyone to know he's rich. He's the boss. Obviously no mask whatsoever, etc., etc. For readability, he will be referred to as Porsche Father. Porsche Father: We've been calling you since 6 a.m. We're late for our breakfast. Me: Calm down. I'm just the neighbor from number 6. I can unlock the gate and let you out for now, but we still have to wait for the technician to come and fix it. Well, it's 10 minutes that I've been waiting here. Couldn't you get up earlier? My daughter's turning 18 next week, and she's having a bad time. He points to a girl in his car, Porsche daughter, who was beautiful, but with the most extreme resting jerk face that I had ever seen. Anyway, I work from home, and my shift is 9 to 18, so I usually wake up at 8 a.m. So yeah, Porsche daughter: Let that idiot fix the thing and let's go. I'm gonna miss my croissant. I ignore them, turn around, and open my screwdriver bag, and I start to unlock the gate from one side. Everything is a little bit rusty, so I treat everything carefully as I don't want to damage anything, especially my brand new screwdrivers. They had been gifted to me by my father when I moved to this new flat. Porsche Father loses what was left of his temper, grabs the biggest screwdriver from my bag without asking anything, and starts unscrewing the other side of the gate, screaming at me. I slowly get up and approach Porsche Father. Then at this point, he's trying to turn a screw with a screwdriver that's too big for it, scratching both. Me: Ahem. Porsche Father doesn't even watch me, and at this point, tries a lever to pop out the screw. I try to stop him, but inevitably the screwdriver breaks. My new shiny red screwdriver. Me: That was part of my new set. Who told you to take it? Why did you do that? He grabs my arm and starts screaming random stuff. But at this point, a lot of neighbors were already watching us, and he was red angry for his late breakfast. Me: Let my arm go. Porsche Father: Fix this gate fast. Let my arm go. He then tries to punch me in the stomach, and at that moment, my reflexes just kicked in, and I just deviated the punch, got into his defense, and just placed him on the ground. Then I grabbed the broken screwdriver and just returned back to my side of the gate. Note: as I practiced for a lot of time dangerous sports, I have what basically translates to a federal license. If I were to be found to have a collusion and the police had to intervene, I would be considered armed and I could face jail. Porsche Father was outraged. He started screaming more stuff as I just turned back to my side of the gate, tossed the broken screwdriver in my bag, and unlocked the first side. Porsche Father: You have to be careful with me. I can ruin your life. I just ignore him, push him away from the gate, and proceeded to unlock the other side of the gate. Having been unlocked, the two sides of the gate now open freely. I open the two sides, and as I do that, Porsche father tosses away the screwdriver bag, scratching the shiny red metal case, and almost drives over me while going out with his car. Porsche daughter, "Bye, jerk!" Porsche father, yelling at me. A neighbor, good neighbor, approaches, asking if I was okay, as my wife was collecting my screwdrivers and bag from the ground. Me, "Yeah, he just wanted to have his moment. It's okay." Good neighbor, "He's always like that, but happily, he's home only at night, but even then, he makes a lot of noise." The trigger times 2. Fast forward to 8 p.m. I was laying on the sofa watching some movies, and I hear ringing on my door. I open it and, Porsche father, "Who do you think you are to mess with me? You are nothing, and you should just keep your mouth shut." I just closed the door. He kept ringing at my door for another good 5 minutes. At that point, I just walked to the fuse box and disconnect the bell. I could hear him scream from the stairway, but the noise dampeners in the wall really work miracles, so I just turned up the TV volume. Repeat this scene for the following 4 days. He would ring at 6:30 a.m. just to wake me up, and he would keep ringing at 8 p.m. just to scream at me. After 4 days, he just stopped, but at this time, I had to have a pro-revenge, but I didn't really know how yet. The opportunity presented itself the following Wednesday, Porsche daughter's birthday. The opportunity. At 8 p.m., I start hearing loud music, happy screams, and people burping and stuff, all coming from the attic. I just let it be, but I could clearly hear at least a dozen voices of guys and girls, and most of them were probably going to be drinking. I just let it go. They were just having fun. And also at 10 p.m., we have national curfew due to lockdown, so everything will be over soon, right? Wrong. 11 p.m. comes, nothing changes. Midnight, nothing changes. 1 a.m., nothing changes. I suddenly have an idea. I grab a low pi, a LoRaWAN-enabled device, super high-distance connections with low power, a Raspberry Pi 0W. It has a modified Debian distro that I use when doing pen tests, a small battery pack, and my laptop, and I just reached the rooftop. I quickly connected the Raspberry Pi to the neighbor's Wi-Fi, thank you default passwords, and configured the low pi to trigger a specific RPI's input on connection. I wrote a simple man-in-the-middle script, and I leave everything in an electrical box on the rooftop, and I just return to my flat and call the police for strange disturbances upstairs. You'll understand in a minute. I watch the street and notice that a car is coming from the distance, blue lights on at around 2 a.m. I trigger the first action from another LoRaWAN device from my flat. The music suddenly stops. I hear them complaining, and they are clearly trying to turn on the music again. I wait for the police to reach the parking lot and trigger the second action. Every website is redirected to the most disgusting videos I've ever seen, pumped directly from Porsche father's loudspeakers. The police enter and go directly to the attic. What happened there, I don't really know, but what I know is the aftermath. As we were still in lockdown, it was legally allowed to only have 2 relatives at home, or else you could receive a huge fine and could even be registered as criminal offense. So they apparently ended up with 560 euros fine for illicit gathering, 1,000 euros each for 24 people, so 24,000 euros for broken curfew, 250 euros fine for ambulance and intoxication analysis, for a cool total of 25,560 euros plus something that I might have forgot, all for having treated me like garbage. Oh, and yeah, the Raspberry Pi is still on the rooftop and I've upgraded it, giving it a nice solar panel. I randomly turn on the crazy mode when I feel sad. It always makes me smile. Have you ever had a neighbor treat you horribly? If so, what did you do about it? Please let us know. Mom, this isn't my Switch. Backstory. I had a bit of car trouble a ways back and started to ride the bus to work. It's close, and I realized it was a huge saver for gas and just stuck with it. There was always this kid and his mom on the bus on the way home, and the kid was overly energetic and loved chatting with everyone. And quickly, he decided I was the most fun because I would indulge with him with my attention and actively listen, no matter how tired I was. Friday, I brought my Switch because a game I really wanted came out, and I had all the nostalgia from playing it. I charged it at work and was stoked to play it on the way home. Thus, our story begins. Edit for clarity, cast of people. We've got me, we've got the little dude, we've got the entitled jerk, we've got random dude, and we've got confused dad. Skipping the exhausting day and pleasantries of getting on the bus, I found a seat, and as I went to grab my switch from my bag, I heard a familiar voice. So I stopped, figuring I can wait the 30 or so minutes for the ride and let the little dude have his story time. Little dude: "Hey, did you have a good day again?" Me: "I always have a good day, but it's better when I get to hear how great your day was." Little dude: "Well, I went to that video game place, and they had a cool poster today for a game I really want to try." I was excited to hear this because I knew exactly what he was talking about. Me: "Is it the one with the cool animals you take pictures of?" Little dude: "They are called Pokemon, not animals. Why are old people so dumb sometimes?" He giggled as he jabbed at me, and I looked over with a devious smile and said, "I may be old and dumb, but..." I pulled out my switch case. Guess what this old dummy got this morning? His eyes lit up and he asked to play. I tried to ask his mom if it was okay if he sat next to me to play, and she said point blank, "I don't care, as long as he shuts up. I'm tired of listening to him." I was mad, but since little dude ignored her, so did I. He plopped down next to me and let me make him a profile, and he went to town on the game. He squealed, giggled, oohed, and ahed at all the different Pokemon he found, but sadly, my stop was coming up, so we had to stop. He asked for one more round, and I agreed, figuring if I had to walk a little further to let this little dude have one more run, so be it. Well, I passed my stop and I was fine with it, and I was going to ask him to give me the switch back. Pleasantly, to my surprise, when I turned, he already had it off and put away. He handed it to me, and then things went downhill fast. Little dude: "I have to get off soon, so that's all I can play." Me: "No probs, little dude. I'll try to bring it Monday, and you can kick butt at it again." "Really? Thanks." He ran back to his mom to help carry some bags, and she whispered something to him. I have no clue what, and then stood up and started storming towards me. "Excuse me? How dare you take that away from my kid? He doesn't get many video games." I was confused and thought she must think he brought his or something. Me: "Really sorry, but this Switch is mine. I played all morning on it and let him goof off on it on the ride home." Karen: "That is definitely his Switch. I recognize the case. What do you think I am, stupid?" Me: "It's a generic case. Everyone I know has the stupid red and black case for these things. Seriously, this is mine. Now back off." Little dude was bright red and obviously embarrassed since the bus came to a stop and everyone was watching, but whimpered, "Mommy, it's his Switch. I left mine at home. He just let me play on it." Entitled mom: "Shush, I'm handling this." Me: "You heard, little dude. It's mine. Now please go away. I already have a long walk home now." "And let you steal his game? No, hand it over or I will call the police." Random dude: "Lady, I already did, and they have someone on the way." "How dare you call the police on me when this jerk is robbing my kid?" This upset me, and I wanted to stay calm for little dude, but I did get loud, and I regret because I scared little dude. Me: "Let's just wait for the police. I'm pretty sure attempted robbery will still get you arrested." I guess this freaked out Karen because she darted off the bus alone without any groceries. Little dude started crying and calling after her, but she just kept walking. I felt lower than dirt and tried in my calmest, meekest voice to talk to little dude. Me: "I'm sorry, little dude. I shouldn't have yelled at your mom. I acted like a complete idiot." Little dude, through tears: "Mommy does this all the time to people. I'm really sorry. I thought she wasn't gonna do it again." We sat there for like 10 minutes while he cried a lot, and the bus driver waited and was talking with someone about the delay. Everyone else on the bus felt bad, I guess, because no one freaked out about sitting there. Then after 10 minutes, a very large, very angry man stormed onto the bus with entitled Karen in tow. He saw a little dude curled up on the seat crying next to me and shot daggers from his eyes right at me. We will call him CD for Confused Dad. Confused Dad: "You have 3 seconds to explain what the heck you did to my kid." I tried to speak, but Karen cut me off. "He threatened him." I was gonna scream at her, but little dude tugged on my sleeve. Little dude: "No, Mommy tried to steal his Switch. He only let me play. I just want to go home." He was ugly crying again. Confused Dad turned to Karen, and I swear time stopped for a minute before anything was said. Confused Dad: "Get the groceries and get back to the house. If you ever do this crap again, you will be on the street faster than you can call your jerk sister." Karen opened and closed her mouth like a fish for a few seconds, then did as she was told.
Confused dad asked little dude if anything else happened, and random dude told him the cops will be here soon. After a few minutes later, like 2 or 3 minutes, they were. Me and confused dad explained it was a huge misunderstanding between him and myself, but they did demand to talk to Karen about abandoning her kid on the bus with a stranger. She went with them for more questions, but I have no clue what's going to happen there. When the police and everyone left, confused dad and I talked for a moment. He apologized and explained that he himself had been assaulted in the past, and just the idea of something like this happening again had him seeing red. I told him I understood and told him he should get little dude the game he was playing to help cheer him up. All in all, I was mad as heck at Karen, but confused dad was not all that bad, just a dad protecting his kid. I hope I see little dude on Monday and he's alright. I also hope Karen gets the book thrown at her for being a terrible parent. Am I the jerk for telling pregnant daughter-in-law the world doesn't revolve around her? I, 54, and my husband, Rick, 57 male, have 3 kids. The oldest, Kurt, 29 male, is married to Becky, 28 female. She's normally a good daughter-in-law, and I try to be a good mother-in-law. We've had a pretty good relationship through the years. Issues have only popped up in the last few months since they are now expecting a baby in November. It is relevant to this situation that Kurt is technically my stepson, but I am the only mother he has known. Becky is becoming increasingly difficult. She expects everyone to bend to her will because she is pregnant, or because she's the mother of our grandchild. Recently, Rick and Kurt were talking about our finances, and Becky started making suggestions about what money we should start saving for our grandbaby. That same day, I served lunch. I made chicken for Becky because she isn't eating cold cuts. She made a few comments about the cold cuts that she didn't have to eat. She also made a few comments about the wine we served. She does not want Kurt drinking while she is pregnant, but he didn't agree to this. My husband and I have a second home that we just redid, knocked down the original. The new home has 3 floors. First is the bedrooms and hangout space. Second is middle living and master. Third is bedrooms. This has been in the works for years, so our kids are very excited to all go this summer. We are all set up for our first trip in July. The issue that came up is that my 2 other kids, Tim and Cassie, 23 male and 21 female, plan to have fun on this trip, which includes having some friends to the house a few times, amusement park, scuba diving, and going out. When Becky and Kurt were over last weekend, Tim and Cassie were talking about their plans, and Becky got upset, saying that because she is pregnant, this trip shouldn't be all about drinking. It's not. But we aren't banning alcohol from the house. She also said that next year's trip will not include any get-togethers because she will have the baby. Tim just told her not to worry because she doesn't have to participate in any of the fun. Becky called me and said she was still upset about our plans. She said we needed to respect the fact that she can't participate in all of the activities we are planning. I told her that there were plenty of things she can participate in and not to worry about what the other kids were doing. She then said she really thinks I should limit the drinking and parties. I informed her that I have no intention of limiting anything since this is their vacation as well, and these activities can take place on the back deck. I told her she can have the bedroom upstairs in the front so that she will not be bothered, but she was mad that she would have to walk up all of the steps. She also accused me of caring less because Kurt is not my son. Not true. At the end of our talk, I told her she could get a rental to have their own space, but she accused me of trying to exclude her. I reminded her she spent many nights out drinking when she was their age and that the world can't revolve around her just because she's pregnant. Am I the jerk? Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or their daughter-in-law? Please let us know. She's already becoming an entitled mom, and she hasn't even had the baby yet. Card only means card only. Work as a cashier at a construction store. The machine I was working at was technically a self-checkout one in the garden area. However, due to the limited nature of the point-of-sale system, it was easier to have a cashier manning it to correct and input items. My machine was card only and says so in big letters above the top, and across from me, maybe 10 feet away, was my coworker who was manning a normal register. One guy wasn't having it, and neither was my coworker, who's just a little old biddy who doesn't take people's BS. Anyway, we're checking out people and getting a big line down. Before every customer comes up, I point to the sign and ask, "Is card okay?" Some people just have cash, so go over to my coworker to check out. Enter Guy, whom I asked the stated question, and he comments, yes, he wouldn't mind paying with card. Me, "Card okay?" Guy, looking directly at me, "Yes." Me, "Thanks." I start ringing as per usual. Guy pulls out cash and tries to hand it to me. Me,
Sir, I'm sorry, but this machine can only take card. Guy gives me a dirty glare and then glances at the machine. I don't have anything else. How am I supposed to pay? Me. Well, you can step over to my coworker. She's able to take cash since she has a normal register. Guy starts grumbling and slamming stuff around. Then why did you call me over? Me. I asked if you had card. I'm not saying it to be mean. It's just a normal register. Guy shoves bill in my face. This is legal Tinder. It's against the law to not take it. Me, getting annoyed at this point. Sir, there's nowhere for me to put the cash. I step back at this point and motion for him to take a good long look at the card-only machine. So Guy grumbles and goes over to my coworker to check out. As I'm helping the next customer, he starts yelling and calling me all sorts of names. We're only 10 feet away from each other, and he's in my clean line of sight. My coworker, who's witnessed this whole thing, at this point decides she's done with him too. Guy. That jerk wouldn't take my cash. Coworker stops what she's doing and glares at him. He keeps ranting. Coworker, in a very, very loud, clear mom voice. Stop it! Guy stops and stares. Coworker. Don't you insult her. She's right there. Guy. But she... Coworker, having none of it. Even if she took your cash, how would you get your change back? She doesn't have any money. Guy. She refused. Coworker. And I'm right here. So why are you whining? I've never... Coworker. Stop it. Either you can apologize or be quiet. You can't do that. Oh, yes, I can. I can refuse you service, or I'll tell my manager what you were doing. This promptly shuts Guy up, who just gives us both dirty glares as he quietly pays, with a card he had in his wallet, of all things, instead of his precious cash, and then he proceeds to leave. Neither of us ever heard that Guy complain to anybody or had him come back. Am I the jerk for telling my brother that he's not a real single dad since his son is in daycare 24/7? My brother and his ex were together for 3 years. They were both unfaithful throughout the relationship, and when they broke up, she got pregnant and told him there's a chance he is or isn't the father, and things became even crazier. He had just gotten a major promotion and was going to be making a lot of money, and he felt like she was only keeping the baby to take his money on the off chance the baby is his. When the baby was born, they got a paternity test, and he was the father. After that, they got into a huge custody battle. She was unemployed after losing her job and living with her parents, and my brother was way more stable than her. He had money, a job, a house, and a nursery all ready for the baby. He also wanted 100% custody. I asked him why, since he worked so much and didn't seem to want the baby throughout the pregnancy. He said he knows the type of person she is, and she thought she would use a baby as a pawn for his money. But our aunt is a family lawyer and helped him hire a top attorney to get full custody. And he got it. When the baby was only like 7 months, he got full custody and never allows her to see him. She begs and begs and he refuses. He gets happy seeing her so sad. He enrolled his son in daycare every day 5 days a week from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. as soon as he got custody. He's now 3 and still on this schedule. My mom or me, since getting my license, picks him up from daycare and watches him at my brother's house until he gets off at about 8 or 9ish. He then lets him use the iPad until he goes to sleep around 10. Then it's the same routine over and over again. He doesn't even spend time with his son. The only time he ever spends with him is when he's taking him to daycare in the morning. We watch him on the weekends too, so he can unwind and basically have a bachelor pad. He doesn't even seem to love his son. His teachers, since he was a few months old, are like his mother figures. He calls them mama. He's the first there in the mornings and the last to get picked up. Meanwhile, his mom is begging to see him since she hasn't seen him since lockdown began. Yes, I know. And my brother refuses. Whenever my brother complains about being a single dad, I tell him he's not a real single dad since he chose to be the only parent and spends thousands on top lawyers, and also, his son is in daycare literally every day for most of the day and he never sees him. He called me a jerk and said I'm disgusting for saying he's not a real single dad and he works to provide for his son. Disney and how to beat the system. I was probably the entitled one in this story. When I was a junior in high school, I went on a date with a girl I knew from a couple of classes at school. We lived in Southern California and Disneyland was close, so we decided to go there. It was cheaper then too. California Adventure was still being built and they used to charge less for residents. She wanted to do something a little crazy, so we decided to go to a thrift store on our way to the park and buy the most ridiculous outfits to wear for the day. I got to pick out hers and she got to pick out mine. For her, I found this old gray Amish-style dress that looked handmade and smelled like mothballs. I chose that and a green John Deere trucker hat. She found me a pair of oversized khaki pants and a red Hawaiian shirt and suspenders. We changed at a gas station and headed to the park. We had been there about an hour and were waiting in line for Space Mountain, getting all kinds of weird looks, which I guess was the point, when I spotted the family of my new brother-in-law. I recognized them, but they didn't recognize me. They lived 2 states away, and I'd only met them at my sister's wedding a few months before. I asked my date if it would be okay if I went and said hi. She said to go invite them up to stand in line with us and just to act like we were one group. I didn't feel too bad as the line was moving quick and they weren't that far behind us. I said I'd be right back, and at first, I tried to snake back through the line to get to them, but I got frustrated and just started undoing the ropes, separating the line and redoing them behind me. It was much quicker. Soon, I was talking to my brother-in-law's parents and siblings, and I invited them to come up to where we were in line. They happily agreed, and I just did what I had done to get to them, undoing the ropes and reattaching them after the small group of us passed. At first, people started to look annoyed, but then for some reason I didn't get, they just kind of moved to one side and made space for us to cut through. As I passed one lady waiting there with her boyfriend and an 8 or 9-year-old, I heard her lean over to him and say, "I guess it's who you know." I still didn't understand. A moment later, we were with my date and talking, and a few minutes later, we parted ways as we got on the ride, them ahead of us. After the roller coaster, we saw them again briefly, and the mom asked me how long I had worked at Disneyland. It all clicked. The different looks and the complete lack of outright rude commentary as we cut through the line. Commentary I fully expected and deserved, by the way. It was the Hawaiian shirt and khakis. I laughed and told her I didn't work there, that we bought the clothes at a thrift store on our way there as a joke. They all laughed and later told me that they thought it was awesome that Disney would pay an employee to escort an Amish girl through the park. I got confused for a worker 3 more times that day. At least 3 more people came up and actually started talking to me like I worked there. One was a park employee and asked me where my name tag was and why I was so far out of my area. After I explained I was a guest, she was super nice and told me that the shirt was one that was used as a uniform for an area over by the jungle ride. I told her we found it at a random thrift store and she looked surprised because all of the uniforms are park property and I guess they aren't supposed to leave the park. The rest of the day, people stepped out of our way when we were walking anywhere and kind of just let us by. Not typical or expected. It was the nicest day I ever spent at Disney. That was the only date we ever went on, but we're still friends to this day. Am I the jerk for reporting my neighbors? I, 26, female, have been living in the same apartment complex for about 5 years now. In the 5 years I've lived here, I haven't had any issues with any of the neighbors until recently. A year ago, a new couple moved in. Things started off rocky because they chose to move in at 12 a.m. on a weekday. Everyone in the apartment asked them to be quieter as they moved, but throughout the week, they were super loud. More time passed and the noise didn't stop. The guy stomps around and the woman is constantly slamming drawers and screaming. They run the laundry past 2 a.m. Eventually, I asked them to be quieter. The apartment's quiet hours are from 10 p.m. to 8 a.m. I get laundry goes a little long, but 2 a.m.? I also asked that they be more courteous about their pets. It wasn't fair that neighbors had to listen to their dogs howl and cats scream well past 1 a.m. The guy immediately became defensive and said they're animals and can't help it. He works early and has to have his uniform clean. He went on about how he was a veteran and needed his animals. I told him because they were so loud, I knew that they were home around 6 p.m. If they run the laundry around then, they could easily do 2 loads that would finish around 11. I also told him I get that pets help him, but he could train them to be better behaved. I also get up early, so having his pets act up and his laundry going past 12 was very disruptive. Suffice to say, we don't get along. Recently, there's been this loud sound, like an old engine or a generator. It starts around 11 and goes through the night. I slept in the living room for a while and figured it would stop soon. I was wrong. I went up to ask them about the sound, but the woman smirked and called her partner over. He told me he purchased an AC and would not be turning it off. I said that was fine, but maybe he could move it or place something under it to muffle it. He slammed the door in my face, so I reported it to the property manager. Apparently, this was the 5th complaint they had since moving in, so they were fined $500. Since then, they made a point to tell me that I've put them under insane financial strain. I feel bad, but I tried to talk to them. Should I feel bad? Am I the jerk? Karen demands I change her tires. This isn't an auto shop. So yesterday, I was told by my dad to stop by his work and change my tires from winter to summer ones. I arrived just when they were having lunch, so maybe that's why things had to come to this point that they came to. I loaded the tires and tools on a cart and moved it closer to my car. Around 5 minutes in, a car that I've never seen arrives, and it looked really strange because it was the typical family BMW SUV with a lady coming out of it, and parking spaces for customers are in the front of my dad's work, not behind it. So I'm looking at her, wondering what she's going to do. She came close enough to me she could hear my car radio blasting, so she gestured to lower the volume. So that's exactly what I did. The conversation went like this. Me, can I help you? Karen, yes. When can I come and pick my car up? Me, not knowing she thinks I'm an auto shop. I don't know, whenever you want, I guess. Oh, that's awesome. I'm gonna go to Tesco and buy some stuff. I will be back in 15 minutes. She then proceeds to leave the keys on my cart and walks off. By now, I'm kinda confused. What did she want from me? I assumed she wanted me to look after her car because it's quite common that other people bump with their doors into your car and just leave. So I didn't take that as a problem since it was parked a few meters from me. After maybe 30 minutes, she comes back with 2 bags. Karen, are the tires changed? Me, what tires? Tires on my car, of course. Have you changed them already? For clarification, I can get easily upset if people talk to me like I'm some slave of theirs, but it takes a lot more to make me lose it. Me, why the heck would I change your tires? Karen, because you already pulled out the tires from your shop, and you have the tools out too, so that means you're open for business. Now I realize what's going on. Me, do I look like I'm an auto shop? Now Karen made a big mistake. Karen, are you deaf or what, you moron? You have tools and tires out on a cart, so change my tires. This is the point where I snapped. Me, who do you think you are, and who do you think you're talking to? You better get out of here before I teach you a lesson. Karen, how dare you speak to me like that? You're lucky my husband isn't with me. Now get changing my tires before I slap you. Now my dad is coming out from the back door because he hears the screaming. Dad, what's going on here? Karen, your employee is refusing to change my tires and is being very rude and disrespectful to me. Dad, he's not our employee and we don't change tires. What are you doing back here anyway? Karen, I'm here to get my tires changed because my stupid husband doesn't know how to. Dad, we are not an auto shop, so shut your mouth and leave our parking yard. Karen, so you are rude, disrespectful, and confusing me instead of telling me that you're not an auto shop? At this point, I see her getting ready to slap me, so I did the most simple and probably the best thing I could do. I just raised my hand so that when she was already in the motion, she hit the pipe that I was holding. After that, she screamed and ran to her car and just drove off. When my dad asked what the heck was that, I just answered, some idiot from the city, and we had a good laugh about it. Karen mistakes my dad for a mariachi band member. This story was told to me by my dad, so this is all secondhand and some details may be missing. Background: my dad is Hispanic. He has dark skin, brown eyes, and a mustache. He also takes pride in his appearance, and he looks like a refined cowboy when he dresses up. Straw hat, neatly pressed button-up shirt, black jeans, and spit-shined boots. He's very social, and his work is his second family. So if there is a party, a convention, or any kind of get-together, he will be there. Story time. Before lockdown, my dad and his coworkers had checked into their hotel and had decided to go to the lobby that had a taco bar set up for the guests. It had discounted margaritas, a live mariachi band for entertainment, and unlimited food. So it was perfect for my dad and his buddies to have dinner and relax after a long day. This was an informal gathering, so my dad was wearing his cowboy getup, and everyone who knew him knew who he was. He was milling around, making his rounds and making sure to shake hands and talk to everyone there. At one point, he went in line to the taco bar to have his dinner, and how he put it, a snooty woman who called herself the manager tapped him on the shoulder and started pestering him. We've got Karen and we've got my dad. Karen, excuse me, sir. This bar is only for the guests. Dad, I am a guest. Karen, let me see your pass. This bar is for guests only, not the band members. And this is where my dad started getting mad. Dad, why should I show you my key pass? Why won't you look at my friends' key passes? He pointed to his other fair-skinned friends and called them out. Why are you picking out me in line and not the others? One other thing everyone knows about my dad is that he will be nice only once. Then he will get in your face if you keep pushing him. My dad tried to be polite at first, but once that stubborn Karen manager would not let it go, my dad decided to escalate the situation. Once he did not back down from this woman, she was the one who tried to apologize. But then my dad said the magic words, "I want to speak to your supervisor. I want to talk to him about your conduct." The woman's supervisor was called, and even though the man tried to cover for her, my dad was already upset and was not going to go quietly. He kept asking her and the supervisor why he was the only one being called out. Now, this was not the first time my father had been mistaken for a service worker, and he always believed in making the accuser so uncomfortable that they will keep him in mind next time they wrongfully profile another person. Now he has the entire lobby and the rest of the guests listening in and most likely on his side, judging Karen and her supervisor. The supervisor was red in the face and was finding any way to de-escalate the situation. Finally, he apologized for the 50th time to my dad and asked if there was anything they could do to make this right. My dad seized this opportunity and said, "In that case, I would like to have my dinner at this taco bar for free, and I want my table to have free drinks all night." The supervisor was quick to jump at the chance to calm my dad down and satisfy the rest of the guests. My dad still tells this story, and even though he can get up on his high horse, this time it was warranted. My dad is and always will be the proud Hispanic cowboy who takes no crap from anyone, especially snooty Karens who run their mouths way too much. Our restaurant has been taking more of our tips than legally allowed. Wow, yesterday was insane. I've worked at this restaurant since their opening last year. I've poured my heart and soul into this place. I risked my life during lockdown, stayed late, picked up support shifts, carried the team. I don't even know where to start, but here it goes. Until yesterday, I worked at a restaurant that opened early 2020, then shut down until reopening sometime in May. Last summer, I was pretty upset about the money I was making. I felt like the work I was doing wasn't worth the paychecks. I went to my manager multiple times about this, but she was always able to calm me down and convince me that everything was correct. I didn't want to risk trying a new restaurant with everything going on, and I liked all my coworkers, so I stayed despite feeling like something was off with the tips. I should probably explain our tip-out process. As servers, we can't close our own shifts. The manager is the only one with access to this. At the end of the shift, the manager clocks you out, you staple your receipts, and you're done. Later, the manager puts the info into a spreadsheet to determine our tip-outs to bar, 5% of drinks, server assistant, 1.5% total sales, and food runner, 1% total sales. This is where I believed our tips were being messed up. I know there was at least one instance where a tip-out was taken for support staff that wasn't working. My manager assured me that she goes back every week and checks for mistakes. I'm really easy to handle, I guess, because I continue to fall for it. Mid-April, my manager gets married at the restaurant. We're all paid the same hourly, but the bartenders keep the tips from the bar. At previous events I've worked, including the one event I'd worked at my restaurant, the tips were all split evenly since the bar is the only place tips could be received. The managers agreed that it was meant to be split, but said it was too late to do anything. I'm livid. I worked my butt off for this wedding, and it sucks being taken advantage of by my coworkers. At this point, I decided this was the hill I was willing to die on. I was taking a week off starting the weekend after the wedding, so I didn't want to quit immediately. But there's no way I could stay somewhere where a tip pool is stolen by 3 people and the manager's response is just, "Oops." So I decided to look up the laws. I wanted to see if there was anything I could do about it. I go to my state's Department of Labor website and see that it's illegal to take more than 15% of the total tips. Uh-oh. The whole year I knew something was off. I felt like I wasn't making what I should, and I was right. I went into work, got the info I needed from my past 3 shifts, and there it was. More than 15% of my tips was going to tip out the bar and support. They're speaking to a lawyer to confirm because they can't just shell out the money without knowing, but according to my manager's rough estimate, they owe us at least $60,000 to $70,000. This jerk then has the audacity to try to guilt me about it, acting like it's somehow my fault they got caught red-handed, telling me the support staff will lose their jobs, asking if I think they're overpaid. I guess it never crossed her mind that they could be paid a higher hourly. She's claiming they had no idea and were just following the industry standard, but I don't buy it. Why does the money always have to come from our pockets? If you don't know the laws for tipped workers in your state, look them up. All the information I needed was right there, and it was easy to call and confirm. I'm sick of these scummy managers and owners taking advantage of our hard work. It's time for us to take the trash out. Have you ever had a boss or a manager try to take advantage of your hard work? If so, what did you do about it? Please let us know.
You do every day, Reddit boy. I'm so sick of sitting here listening to you read all day.
Am I the jerk for celebrating my birthday? Hello everyone, I'm 13 and female. I was born in a very poor country. My mom didn't have great prenatal care, so she didn't know she was having twins until my brother and I were born. She had just wanted a boy. My brother passed when he was only a baby, and my mom got really depressed after that. Because of my brother's passing, we never celebrated my birthday, because it was supposed to be a day of mourning. My family will have small celebrations for me on other days, usually just going out for ice cream or other small things. My mom never joined in or anything, no matter when we had them. We live in the United States now, and birthdays are a way bigger deal here than when we were back in our old country. We moved here when I was 7, and ever since then, I've always wanted a birthday party with balloons and cake and streamers and everything like that. But my mom has always said no because she says I'm being disrespectful to my brother. Where I live, you're allowed to have parties of up to 25 inside, 100 outside. All of my friends were having small parties to celebrate turning into teenagers, and I felt really left out because I wasn't going to get a party. I tried to ask my parents again, and they said no. My mom said no, and that I was disrespectful for asking, and my dad told me to listen to my mom. I know that it's not right to be dishonest, but I just really wanted to experience that feeling of having a whole party just for you. So I saved up all of my money from the weekend job that I have, and I bought a cake and decorations and invitations. My friend's family owns a restaurant, and they agreed to let me use the back room. On my birthday, I spent the morning grieving with my parents and then told them I had to go to a friend's house for a school project. I had my birthday party, and it was the most amazing time I had ever had in my life. 20 of my friends came, and they all got me gifts and sang to me. There was music and dancing, and it was amazing. My parents found out though, because one of my friend's parents mentioned to my mom when she saw her at the supermarket the next day what a great time my friend had during my party. My mom came home and freaked out. She called me disrespectful, disgraceful, and basically said that she wished my brother had made it instead of me. I'm not allowed to hang out with my friends or go on any electronics except for schoolwork. I can use the family computer in the living room so she can see what I'm doing. I'm writing this on a computer in the school's library. I don't think my mom would be as mad if I had the party another day and not on my actual birthday, and that's the only thing I feel really bad about. I could have had it the day after my birthday instead of the day of and spent the day with my family. I just hate spending every single birthday sitting in the dark and not talking or eating while we mourn my brother. I just wanted 1 year to celebrate. Am I the jerk? Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her mom? Please let us know.
Definitely the mom. My heart really goes out to OP, and I'm glad she got to have a great birthday.
My husband is a member. When I got to work on Sunday, my manager told me that inventory was shut off because housekeeping needed to catch up from the weekend. We are crazy short-staffed. I was working alone, but Sundays are usually slow, so it was okay. All shift I had people walking in or calling trying to book a room, and I had to tell them all that we had no rooms available. One lady called a few times and was not having it. First phone call. Me. Thank you for calling our hotel. This is OP. How can I help you? Lady.
Hey, do you have availability for tonight?
Me. Unfortunately, we do not have any more rooms to sell tonight.
Unbelievable.
She hangs up. Second phone call, 45 minutes later. Me. Intro. Lady.
Hi, my husband is a member. Can I make a reservation for tonight?
Me. I'm really sorry, but due to staffing issues, we had to close our inventory for the night, so I have no rooms available.
What do you mean? My husband is a member, and you can't make me a reservation?
Me. No, I can't. She hangs up. Third call, 20 minutes later. Me. Intro. Lady.
Hi, are you the manager?
Me. I'm not, but I'm the only one here tonight, so what can I do for you? Lady.
Well, when I talked to you earlier, you said you had no rooms available due to no housekeepers, but I'm in front of your building right now, and I only see 7 cars. How are you filled up for the night? My husband is a member.
Me. So, housekeeping worked all day today to clean enough rooms for the reservations we already had for today.
So unfortunately, I have no other clean rooms. Lady:
This is ridiculous. You should have extra rooms available for your members. What is your manager's name?
Here's the manager's name. She'll be here at 8 a.m. tomorrow. Lady:
Oh no, I'm calling corporate.
Hangs up. I left out a lot of her ranting, but man, this lady was wild. I couldn't even make her a reservation if I wanted to. The computer literally wouldn't let me. And why do people think being a member means anything? All it takes to be a member is giving us your email and zip code. I'm just glad she called from her car and didn't come to talk to me at the front desk. Sorry, no unemployment for you. But back in the early 90s, I was working for a company that provided staffing for US government agencies. I was a system administrator at a large Department of Transportation facility. One day, I walked in, was told to see my supervisor, who very apologetically told me that Uncle Sam no longer wanted me working there, and well, I was fired. I was told to go to the contracting company's office on the other side of town, which I had never been to, save the day I was hired. Shocked, I drove up there. I was like 24 and had never been fired before. In retrospect, I know what happened. The project I was working on was failing, not because of anything I did or didn't do. The concept itself was flawed. There were 3 people who worked on the project. 2 were federal FTEs, plus me, the contractor. Anyone who has had experience with this knows the contractors are the first to go. So I'm sitting with the manager of the local branch, who has an email from the government employee in charge of the doomed project, listing a parade of horribles that I had done. Some of the minor ones were true. I had been late a few times, but the major ones were just fabrications. They claimed that there was a problem with the networking and that a contractor had to be engaged to fix the problem. Is that true? Well, yes, I am that contractor. I diagnosed the problem and then I fixed the problem. That's my job, or at least it was until a couple of hours ago. The manager realizes pretty quickly what's going on. Not that it gets me my job back. As we go through the separation procedures, he tells me that per company policy, he's required to document that I am not eligible for unemployment compensation. I just nodded because I didn't know much about these things. He says I'm getting a 2-week notice and that for the next 2 weeks, I am to show up to his office. He offered the use of office equipment to print resumes, apply for other jobs, and the like. So after a couple of days, he says he's set up an interview for me at another project at the same facility. Sure. I went down there, sat with the project manager. Interview lasted less than 5 minutes. So, we're a COBOL shop here. What's your experience with COBOL? None whatsoever. So we both realized it was a bad fit. I went back to the office, confused as heck. The site manager knew I didn't have COBOL experience. Why did he send me there? I found out a few weeks later I had applied for unemployment compensation anyway, upon the urging of my friend who said that policy sounded really sketchy. I had an interview at the unemployment office and they looked over the paperwork, noticed the form that said ineligible, and the lady explained that I could contest that. I said sure. She asks me if I've been applying for work. I said yes. She asked if I've had any interviews. I told her about the one I had. Her eyes widened and she smiled. If they interviewed you for another position, that means you were not terminated for cause. You were let go because of lack of work. That's a layoff. She then marks on the paper that I am eligible for unemployment compensation. I ask if I still need to contest their finding. No, they can contest my determination, but given that they actively tried to keep you employed after these events, it's not gonna fly. He did you a big favor by sending you on that interview. Am I the jerk for telling my sister that it's her fault she wasted money on a wedding few people are planning to attend? The important thing to know about our family is that it has a decent chunk of elderly people and a lot of families. My sister and I are in a group of about 5 within our age range. Most of our relatives are about 10 to 15 years older or younger. In other words, everybody else is already an established, red, non-partying adult, or they're still kids. My sister is a party girl, and it was clear from the start of planning that she was more concerned with making her friends comfortable than our family, which caused issues. She chose a venue 4 hours from home, but which is closer to them, and which allows alcohol to be served without the expensive insurance the venues at home are required to mandate. So now, people are going to have to spend at least one night in a hotel on top of everything else. That really isn't likely, and that's before you get into the fact that my sister decided to make the wedding no kids, and that the invitation read cocktail reception to follow. Okay, so you want us to rent at least one, if not two hotel rooms, pay for overnight childcare? I don't even think that's a thing here. Go to a ceremony, and then you're not even going to feed us? No way. My sister and her fiance invited 150 people to their wedding. So far, 107 have RSVP'd with a no. My sister went on an epic Facebook rant earlier, then called me to complain. Apparently, they've already signed contracts with the vendors and paid non-refundable deposits covering half of the amount of people my sister and future brother-in-law thought were attending, instead of waiting until after the RSVPs were returned. After about the third or fourth hour on the phone of trying to calm her down, I finally couldn't stop myself from asking her what she really expected to happen. Did she really expect our 97-year-old great-grandpa to travel that far, then spend the night at a reception without food? Did she really expect our cousins with the quadruplets to pay a babysitter to watch them for a better part of 2 days? She's hysterical and made another Facebook rant. She posted about being the black sheep and how nobody ever supports her, and how even I, in her words, my own baby sister, abandoned her when it came to the biggest day of her life. I was feeling fine about what I said before, but that post is weighing on me a bit. I don't know. Am I the jerk? Edit, because I was unclear. I understand paying a deposit on the venue before sending out the wedding invitations. The issue is that they apparently already paid a non-refundable deposit to the caterer and bartender, etc., for half of who they thought were attending. Second edit. I'm getting a lot of people telling me that it's apparently normal to pay a portion for the vendors, including catering, bartender, etc. That's fine. The issue still remains that my sister is upset about having paid a deposit for people who aren't going to the wedding. Third edit. Her fiance's family lives about an hour from ours. So no, the location is not a compromise between the two families. It's being held where he, my sister, and their friends live. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her sister? Please let us know. Oh god, I just love these Bridezilla stories. We switched banks after they lost my dad's savings and tried to bill us for their mistake. Years ago, we had moved from one state to the next. About a month ago, some lady had managed to find an old checkbook or something of my dad's and managed to clear out his entire savings. My dad tried to buy groceries and thought his card was broken, went to order a new one and was shocked when he found out that all of his money was gone and tried to clear it up with the bank. He said to me later that there should have been noticeable red flags with the bank when going through that check. We were out of state. The check that the lady cashed was pretty old, about 5 to 6 years old, and my dad recently had a divorce about 3 years ago and had to make a new account. They're required to check signatures, and I'm not sure how they managed to pass that. It should have been suspicious at the start since it was cashing out the entire savings. The bank apologized and said that the banker handling the situation will be disciplined, the police will be called, she was found and arrested later, and that his money will be returned in 2 to 3 days or today, and a $40 transfer fee was required. I'm not sure how the entire conversation went exactly, but here is the breakdown. We've got Dad and we've got Bank Lady. Dad: why a transfer fee? Bank Lady: that's for our policy, sir. Dad: I'm not paying for something you guys messed up on. I literally have no money, let alone cash. Bank Lady: I'm sorry if we aren't up to your expectations at this time. Dad: can you please talk to management and see if they can get it in by tomorrow? Hang on. My dad was put on hold for 30 minutes until he was put on the phone with a manager who wasn't much help. Dad, trying to still be nice at this point: can you at least put in the money tomorrow? Manager: I mean, I can try, but that would still be $40. Dad: no. Manager: then you have to wait 4 days. Dad: I'm not paying for some idiot's mistake. Manager: if you don't like our service, then you're welcome to go somewhere else. Cue malicious compliance. My dad hung up and called me over to help him drive to another bank. He didn't tell me what he was doing after he made an account. When his funds were back, he transferred the money to his new account. Written up for not following work schedule. I comply to the fullest. Cast: we've got me, Cook 1, Bob, Cook 2, Mia, the supervisor. Boss names changed for privacy. Our workplace follows a bi-weekly work schedule. I am one of 3 cooks that work. I usually work 4 to 5 days a week, interchanging Friday and Saturday 11-hour closing shift and Tuesday and Thursday 6-hour closing with Bob. As Friday and Saturday are the most busiest and we close at 11 p.m. instead of 10 p.m. as most days. With agreement from our boss, we would switch every schedule. This schedule would be sent in text and a physical copy at work. Bob was scheduled to work this time as I gave notice a month ahead for those days off.
Bob likes to copy and paste schedules, messes up by posting the physical copy stating I'm supposed to work and text copy as my days off. First week of Mia following the physical copy. She calls me that day that I'm 30 minutes late, asking where I am. Confused, I explain the situation that I have my day off and I can't come in. She interjects, saying I was scheduled to work and that I'll be getting a warning for no-show. The next day, I get a call from my boss about my no-show. He doesn't care that the schedule was wrong and not matching. Tells me if I miss today, I'll be written up and that you must follow the schedule at work. He can't misschedule anyone else as nobody wants extra shifts besides me, Bob, and Cook 3 and can't hire anyone as not enough business. Next month rolls around. Bob is quitting and he has already given his 2 weeks notice. The new schedule is up and I notice the schedules don't match. Bob was assigned to work Friday and Saturday when he had already quit by then. So after closing Thursday night, I muted my phone from work and I head home to have a few drinks. Come back to work Sunday and boss is waiting. Goes at me for missing work and how he had to fill in for me as nobody else could. I just told him I was only just following the work schedule exactly. Oh man, he was furious. But after calming down, he does a 180 as he had no one else the next week to cover those days. I just said I couldn't work those days as I get back to work just as the lunch rush comes. What makes my malicious compliance even better is, next week comes. I'm at my mom's work friends party. I see my boss wife there also. I meet her and have a short conversation that led to asking her where boss was. She said he couldn't make it as he needed to cover some shifts at work. I replied, too bad. He probably should have scheduled someone. Hope you enjoyed my malicious compliance as much as I did. Am I the jerk for asking my girlfriend to pay for my new prosthetic leg? I, male 24, was in an accident around 2 years ago that resulted in losing my left leg. I thought that would be the end of my active lifestyle. I loved all kinds of sports as a kid and still do. I had a very hard time adjusting to my new normal. My parents were able to get me a prosthetic leg that allowed me to get back to running and going on trips with my friends like we always did every summer. The guys were planning an RV trip on the weekend. We had already chosen a destination, which was spending some time out in nature and to get away from stress. My girlfriend asked if she could come along. I told her no, this is a guy's trip. Told her all my buddies' girlfriends wanted to go, but they were firm and put their foot down. She laughed at me for this, then tried to convince me to let her come because she was stressed out from being at home 24 hours a day. I already made up my mind. I wasn't going to ruin the trip just because she wants to be on a guy's trip. I promised her a trip when I got back. She got upset and didn't like the idea. Later on, before I went to sleep, I took my prosthesis off as I do every night. This is my second prosthesis. I've already completed a wearing schedule during first year and had to get another prosthesis to accommodate any physical changes I had. I woke up in the morning and I couldn't find my prosthesis. I looked where I put it, but it was gone. I asked my girlfriend, who was doing heavy cleaning around the place, and she said she didn't see it. I was confused that it wasn't near my bed. I asked her to stop being childish and playing games and give me back my prosthesis because I know she took it. She's a bad liar and couldn't even deny it. She said she wanted to hide it so that I won't go on that trip and leave her alone. I got mad at her for this. I was stunned to find my prosthesis hidden underneath an auto part in the garage. It had been damaged. It was placed in a position where it had cracked. It was obvious it no longer functions properly. I mean, I could still wear it, but couldn't put my whole weight on it because it would break. I yelled at her and showed her what she did. She said she didn't mean it. I told her she did mean it because she was being childish and jealous over a trip, and now she caused me $7,000 worth of damage. I told her she ruined everything, that she owed me a new one, and that she needed to pay for a new one. She got mad and left. I basically had to use my old crutches, and it felt absolutely horrible. I called the guys and told them I wasn't coming. It's been a few days. She's mad that I'm still asking her to pay for a new prosthesis and called me a jerk for not apologizing and preferring a plastic leg over her. I had to call my parents today to tell them, and they told me she should at least help pay half of the expenses for a new prosthesis since she caused damage to it, and then consider my relationship with her. Have I been a jerk to her? Edit. For those asking about where I am, I'm in Asia from the Philippines. My Karen sister expects me to pay her mortgage. My sister bought a house with her boyfriend last year. They got a mortgage, and when they broke up, he managed to wiggle his way out and leave her to keep paying the mortgage alone. She's making the payments, but barely,
and she's had money issues that means she's at the point where she can't even afford dinner some nights. Obviously, we're, me, mom, dad, and siblings, worried about her, and we want to help her out. My current lease runs out at the end of the month, and half her mortgage is way less than the average rent in the area. So we talked, and I agreed that I, along with my 3 kids, would move in with her for a while. I would pay rent, which would cover half of her monthly mortgage payment and utilities, and we'd buy our own food, but we'd still share. This way, she'd get her mortgage paid off, my kids and I get to live in a nice house at below average rate, and we know that my sister is doing okay, financially and mentally. However, with less than a month before the move, we talked today to just get up to speed on how everything is going on her end, and she asked to rearrange a few things so that we can move in. She said, "Your half is all sorted." I asked what she meant. There are 2 bedrooms and a bathroom on each floor, so she was thinking that we could have the upstairs and she could have the downstairs. I asked what happens with the kitchen, and she explained that she'll have exclusive use of the kitchen, and when I bring my stuff over, we could set up a kitchenette, a microwave, a kettle, and a mini fridge on the top floor. I asked where my kids were meant to sleep, and she said that my daughter could sleep in my room and my sons could bunk together. My understanding before this was that I get my own room, as does my daughter, and there are no limits on floors or bathrooms or the kitchen, as my sister has said that as there were 4 bedrooms, there was enough room for everyone, and mentioned rearranging the rooms, so I assumed that she meant she was taking the fact I'm bringing 3 kids into consideration. She said as I'm paying for half of everything, I get half the house. I said that my kids and I can't share 2 bedrooms and a microwave, and she said I was being dramatic and we'll be fine. However, I said that this isn't going to work for us, and if she wants us to move in, we're going to need her to condense her office and bedroom into 1 room, so my daughter can have the free room, plus use of the kitchen. My sister said that as we would be using the majority of the house, I should pay at least 75% of the mortgage, possibly 100%, as there's 4 of us and 1 of her. I then said that this really is not going to work out for us, so I will look for a new place with my kids and she can figure her money out herself. She then called me a jerk as she could lose the house without my help, and said I was holding money over her head, and said I was entitled to think that I would get more than half the house when I'm only paying 50% of the mortgage. I said she's the one setting restrictions, and if I had known I was only paying for the top floor, then I wouldn't even have agreed to move in. Am I the jerk? Info. My sons are 11 and 13. My daughter is 5. My sister said if I paid 75% of the mortgage, I could either have a 3rd room or kitchen access, and 100% gets me 3 rooms and kitchen access, which is the point that I said this would not work out. Well, who do you agree with? OP or her sister? Please let us know.
Why does she want to keep this big house anyways? It's just 1 person.
Karen called the cops on me at Tim Hortons. For some context, I live in a predominantly Catholic city where most people attend church on a regular basis. I, however, was not raised Catholic or religious really, so I kind of stand out a little bit from most people. This all happened about 2 years ago when I was still in high school. My high school was just down the road from a Tim Hortons, and across the road from that is a pretty large church, only one in the neighborhood, I think. On Sunday, I decided to grab a coffee on my way to pick up a textbook for one of my classes. It was about 12, so church had just ended and there was a decently long line for the Tims. I had been waiting in line for about 5 minutes when a woman walked up to me and started talking to me. It was a pretty normal conversation, but then she asked why she hadn't seen me that morning. I was confused since I had literally never spoken to this woman before. She told me that this Tim's belonged to the church, which it didn't actually. I casually explained that I did not attend the church she was talking about. She gave me a confused stare and muttered an, "Oh," before walking away. Skip forward to Tuesday. I was once again at that Tim's getting some lunch when the same lady walks up to me and starts to berate me for being at that Tim's.
I thought I told you that this Tim's is for the church only.
Yeah, but it's just a Tim's. Anyone can come in here if they want to.
No, this Tim's is not for anyone who doesn't attend the church.
But the next Tim's is like 5 kilometers away. She continues to just yell at me in front of everyone in the Tim's. I was actually just going to leave to get a lunch from my school. Then she dropped the Karen bomb.
If you do not leave the Tim's right now, I'm going to call the police.
I decided at that moment to stand still and let her call the cops. About 10 minutes later, 2 officers show up. The Karen tells them that I am disrespecting her, disrespecting God, and disrespecting the church. I tell them that I'm just a hungry teenager trying to get my lunch, but the cops take her side and call both of my parents and my school. My super awesome vice principal shows up and demands to know why he got a call from the police about one of his students. The officers tell him what's happening. My vice principal asks me if it's true, and I tell them that I was just trying to get some lunch. My vice principal asks the officers what laws have I broken, and they responded with some BS about harassment or something like that. My parents are called in, and my mom tells the cops to buzz off and that I didn't do anything wrong. But Karen keeps insisting that I had been harassing her. Then one of the employees chirps in and starts to vouch for me. Essentially, the cops leave, and so do my parents. I get my lunch, and my VP walks me back to school. I never ran into that lady after that, but I made sure to get lunch from that Tim's as often as I could. Speaking of Tim Hortons, where's your favorite place to get burgers from? Please let us know. I'm not the lab tech, but you have given me a urine sample before. I work as a dentist in a really small rural town about an hour outside of our mid-sized city of about 250,000 people. Because I'm one of the only dentists in town, and because I'm the only one that will do more complicated extractions and root canals, I dress in surgical scrubs every day. I got tired of laundering bloodstains out of my dress shirts and white lab jackets. A few years ago, I was diagnosed with AFib. I visit my cardiologist about every 6 months just to keep him in business. This last time, as I was checking in at his front desk at the hospital for my appointment, I apparently offended the giant lady behind me by having to update my insurance information and address with a nice lady behind the desk. I was midway through giving nice lady my new address when Karen taps me aggressively on the shoulder. "Can't you guys talk on your lunch break or something? I've got another appointment after this." Immediately, I turn on my impassive, expressionless face I use with my own agitated patients. Rather than responding immediately, I finished giving my information to nice lady. When I was done, I turned to face Karen, who was not pleased with my delayed response. I'm not a small man. The word husky has been thrown around a time or two. But I felt small standing there with her glaring down at me. "I think you've confused the situation here, ma'am. I'm a patient here checking in for my appointment. As soon as nice lady is done with me, I'll go sit down and you can check in." I thought I was polite, but I think nice lady was smirking or grinning behind me because Karen just about had an aneurysm on the spot. "I've been coming here for 6 years, she shrieked. I just stared at her evenly. "I know you've drawn my blood before." I just kept staring blankly for a moment, then said, "No, I haven't. I'm a dentist." And at that moment, I remembered her. She had been an emergency patient I had seen one time only for a toothache years before when I worked in a practice here in town. It had been a catastrophic visit, and she never came back. She remembered me at that same moment, and she saw in my expression that I remembered her. "Oh yeah," was all she said and stepped back. I quickly wrapped up my business with nice lady and meekly sat in a chair. Karen eventually made her way into the waiting room and sat with her back resolutely towards me until I was called back by the nurse. I went through my cardiology checkup and had forgotten about my GL by the time I was done. As I went to leave, I waved at nice lady on my way out. Pro tip: always be extra polite and kind to the office support staff. They have way more influence over your provider's attitude towards you than you realize. How you treat them can influence how your doctor treats you. Nice lady waved me over before I left and told me in a quiet voice that I was the first person to ever shut Karen down mid-attack. I guess Karen is in there at least monthly, and she is always rude and demanding, and most people, being intimidated by her size, just defer and let her have her way. I just smiled and said, guess I'm just lucky. She smiled and I walked off. I am not lucky. What I couldn't say because of HIPAA, American law governing the share of personal health information, is that when Karen was my patient for exactly one visit, I had pulled a really loose infected tooth for her. After the really simple extraction, as I was placing some gauze over the bleeding hole and telling her to relax in the chair and not stand up too fast if she felt lightheaded, she did exactly that. She stood straight up, immediately swayed, and passed out, crashing headfirst over the chair into the tray of used instruments. The chair completely gave out and collapsed, screaming and groaning to the floor. Karen went to the bathroom in her collapse, and the smell literally made my assistant retch. We spent the next few hurried minutes getting her revived and on oxygen. I'm not a small guy, as I've said, but we could not physically move her. And once she was down, apparently she could not physically move herself either. She had to lay there over our twisted chair, breathing on oxygen, yelling and bleeding from her mouth, in a pool of her own waste for a solid 15 minutes, until 6 burly EMS guys could squeeze into our little overcrowded operatory to hoist her up and escort her out to the ambulance. She was not pleased. She apparently recovered and lived to make the lives of other healthcare workers full of interest and entertainment. The chair, however, did not recover. It had to be replaced. I've seen her one other time since then in the far-off distance of Walmart, putting along laboriously on a motorized cart. I guess the moral of the story is that if you are going to aggressively mistake someone as a lazy employee of your doctor, make sure first that he's not someone you already know from an extremely embarrassing prior encounter. Am I the jerk for walking out of a practice after my substitute swim coach told me I couldn't? For some background, I, 15 female, have been swimming competitively for a club team for a little over 7 years, which means I know every coach very well and have been coached by almost all of them at some point. I also work for the swim team and teach swim lessons to the younger kids. This is an official job. I have a work permit and receive consistent pay for teaching these lessons. I teach swim lessons for the team twice a week. The lessons are scheduled to start 10 minutes after my practice gets done. So if I am coaching, I typically get out of practice about 5 to 10 minutes early so I can shower and change. My supervisor likes us to be a few minutes early, and I also like to look presentable at least and be a good role model to the kids. The other day, my current coach, 30-ish male, wasn't able to make our practice, which doesn't happen very often. Instead of canceling practice, another one of my coaches, 50-ish female, took his place. We all knew this coach very well, and I personally had her as a coach for 3.5 years. She had a lot of experience and was constantly going to conventions to learn how to coach her swimmers better. My typical coach is very aware that I leave early on these days, as it has been going on for several weeks. When I saw we had the other coach for the day, I immediately went up to her and told her I would be getting out early. She replied by saying 10 minutes was plenty of time. I tried to explain that the job started in 10 minutes and I needed to be there early, but she insisted that 10 minutes was enough. At this point in my life, saving up for a car, I prioritized my job over athletics and decided I would be leaving when I needed to, no matter what she said. About 10 minutes early, I got out of the pool and put my equipment away. The substitute coach stopped me and told me to get back in the pool and finish my current set, which would be ending in a few minutes after practice should end, actually. I repeated myself, telling her that I had to leave to get ready for work, but she told me again to put my cap back on. I then proceeded to tell her how I admired her as a coach. She was always learning new coaching techniques, and she had so much experience and knowledge, but I needed to leave. I calmly stated that my job isn't optional, and that my supervisor expected me to be there early. Even after all this, she was still upset and told me to get back in the pool. I firmly said that I was not asking for permission, I was telling her I was leaving, and then walked out. She was gone by the time I returned to the pool deck to begin work. I have never stood up to an adult like that, and I'm wondering if I made the right decision. I don't want her to tell my normal coach and have him be upset either. Am I the jerk? Edit. Wow, that blew up fast. I didn't expect such a large response so quickly. I thought I should add that my supervisor has expressed he likes us there early. My normal coach is also fully aware of my schedule. Additionally, I am paid for the full hour. The lesson is only 50 minutes, but we have to gather equipment and organize the kids before it starts, so I like to be early because I am being paid for those 10 minutes before we start. Thanks for all the feedback. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or substitute coach? Please let us know. Sometimes you have to stand up to adults. This was definitely one of those times. My managers forced me to risk my life to make $0 tonight. I put in my 2 weeks. I've been working at a chain wing restaurant to be left unnamed for about 1.5 years. It's in a very small, predominantly white, podunk, empty span can of a town. The clientele is hands down the worst clientele I've ever worked with in over a decade that I've worked in customer service, but due to the volume, the money was very good. This has changed recently, coupled with the fact that our management team doesn't value our time. They clock us out the moment we cash out, regardless of if we're done with our work. So much of our side work is done off the clock, you know, casual wave theft. On top of our GM refusing to cut anyone ever. Saturday, there was an event somewhere in town, and our GM told the shift manager to not make cuts, and I ended up taking 3 tables in 6 hours. Another manager is also telling employees not to put in their notice because it might make the GM mad and he'll mark you as a no rehire, because threats are easier than just being a better management team. We've been really understaffed for months now, like having to close sections because we don't have a server for them understaffed. And I, being one of only a handful of servers with an open availability, was working 9 out of 10 shifts a week, most of them being double closes. Despite this, I'm still getting chewed out and written up for the most minute things. I left like 10 pieces of silverware after a double close because I opened up the next morning and was just going to do it then because I was ready to go, and I was written up after already doing it the next morning. This wouldn't make me as mad as it would have if the managers didn't let other employees get away with being late every day or drunk at work while drinking on the job, but I digress. So to say I've been over the bull for a while is the understatement of the century. Today was the last straw. We're in the middle of a round of storms, mildly relative to the last few, but we're under a flash flood emergency. My managers made me drive half an hour down the back roads of 3 towns under a flash flood emergency just for me to come in and find out that they have me in our outdoor section. I stayed for 2 hours, took 0 tables, and left with $0. The flippant disregard for my life, when they knew we wouldn't need someone on the outdoor patio. The kicker is they had 2 servers scheduled for this section, and the other server actually wrecked on the way and opted to go back home instead of coming to work, and our manager wrote them up. I just feel like if you're barely surviving at a skeleton crew, you'd be inclined to not be garbage to your employees and maybe pick your battles. You need us a lot more than we need you. Before lockdown, serving jobs were a dime a dozen, and they're now a dozen a dime. I'll have a new job quicker than they can close off a Saturday PM section because they don't have staff. This place is going to be done for if they keep it up, and I'm not going down with them. Edit. A lot of people keep saying I should report them for wage theft or file complaints. To be clear, I have no intention of doing that. It's been a crazy few weeks, but I care about a lot of these people, and I would never risk their job security. And frankly, that's just more effort than I'd be willing to put in anyways. Edit 2. To the people bashing me for not being the wage theft savior to a group of grown adults capable of making their own life decisions, get out of your Marvel Universe fantasy. We're all adults, and no one needs to be saved. Edit 3. Obligatory thanks for the silver. To those continuing on about how awful I am for not reporting them, save it. I know my coworkers well enough to know they'd much rather I didn't stir crap up at their job. And again, it's just not the hill I'm willing to die on. I appreciate all of your totally valid opinions on my personal decision, but it won't change anything. Thanks to those of you who get it. Don't schedule anything for your job? Roger. While I usually work in the structural engineering side of our enterprise, occasionally I will assist with some of the generic civil projects. We are a design-build company, exactly what it sounds like. I've been working with a project manager who has been with the company since its founding nearly 30 years ago. We will refer to him as Rob for this story. Important note, this project takes place near Fairbanks, Alaska. Well, about 2 weeks ago, Rob asked me to look into what it would take to get a 40-yard bin dropped off on site for scrap metal from an old tank that was being demoed. He said we want the bin to arrive on Monday, so Monday of last week. I get scrap pricing as well as a drop-off schedule through a local scrapyard and inform Rob of the scrap price and mention that the delivery has been scheduled. Fast forward to that Monday, and I get a call from Rob, and he's just screaming and chewing me out for my scheduling the delivery of this bin. He says, "I told you to look into it, not to schedule it." Well, to me, that means schedule it, and I pointed out that I informed him via email that the bin would be dropped off. Rob then says, "I don't care what the other PMs have you do. Nobody schedules any delivery to my job but me." All right, fine, I can do that. I send him an email which says something along the lines of, "I understood from our conversation this morning that in the future I will not schedule any deliveries for your projects. Is this correct?" That evening, a one-word response, "Yes." Last Wednesday, I get a call from the company which will be supplying the crane for our project. They inform me that they would like to get the 60 RT crane, pretty decent size, delivered to the job site on Friday. I tell them that I cannot confirm that delivery and that I will need to get Rob in touch with them. I am informed that we need to get this handled ASAP because we are getting close to the delivery window. For those unaware, I assume most everyone, as I didn't know this until the conversation, there is a time in the late spring in parts of Alaska where delivery of loads over a certain weight are not allowed due to the damage that the load will do to the roadways with subgrades that are recently unfrozen. Apparently, this window changes from year to year, but is in place starting this week. You can still transport heavy loads, but it takes additional permitting and has a fee, much like normal oversized loads. I call Rob and leave a voicemail for him that he needs to call back our crane supplier and they need confirmation for delivering on Friday. I follow up with an email. I did not hear back on Wednesday, so I repeated the procedure on Thursday morning, again with no answer to either call or voicemail. On Thursday night before I head out, I email Rob and CC our vice president who heads all installation projects, telling Rob that the crane supplier needs an answer immediately and that I've been trying to reach Rob since Wednesday to confirm this, as I have been informed that I am not to schedule deliveries for your project. Well, that got the ball rolling. Rob calls me in the morning on Friday and tells me to get the crane here today. I call the crane guys and they inform me that there is no way that we can get the crane in that day and that it will have to come in on Monday during the restricted delivery window. I end up transferring the crane supplier to our VP because I'm not about to approve the additional price of this delivery and the VP handles it. VP is a cool guy. He's a bit annoyed with me, but I forwarded him the email confirming that I am not allowed to get deliveries scheduled and he is completely off my back about it. Sounds like we are out about $10,000 due to the additional charges for this delivery, and guess who is allowed to schedule deliveries again? I should note that the owner is in the office every day and he's not the kind of guy to take lightly to the fact that he is out 10 grand because someone lost his cool about something stupid. Don't put "see resume." I work in government. The other day I was looking around job boards to see if there are any opportunities available. Lo and behold, I found one that I am well qualified for. Onto the application process. Luckily, I am on one of those sites that stores my information so I don't have to fill out my name, job history, etc. I dust off my resume, required, and list my job dates, titles, and duties, and also my cover letter, tailoring them specifically to the job at hand. Everything looks good. Onto the questions section, which usually includes race, gender, veteran status, etc. But apparently, that wasn't good enough for this job. They also had a bunch of supplemental questions. While not totally unheard of in the government field, it is a giant pain in the butt. There are multiple questions. Some are multiple choice, asking how many years I have with a specific skill. However, after each multiple choice question, there's a question asking me to detail my job dates, titles, and duties where I gained this experience. Then at the end of the question it says, "Please do not write "see resume." Why shouldn't I? My resume has those exact things. So I decided to maliciously comply. I did not write "see resume." Instead, I copy and pasted large sections from my resume directly into the text box. It had all the necessary information and I kept my bullet points, etc. Spoiler alert, I was not selected to interview for the job. When I decided to do the malicious compliance, I basically decided that I didn't need the job that bad. P.S. I hate all the hoops that some employers want you to go through for the privilege of working for them. I think there's a theory that if you really want to work for them, you will do the hoops. However, good potential employees, already employed and reasonably happy, know their worth and don't want to do these unnecessary steps. It basically gives away that the employer is high maintenance. It keeps away the lazy people, but also the good people, driving your workforce to the middle, in my opinion. Some have mentioned that the questions help screen people, especially when dealing with large volumes of applications. While I do understand, this job is not one that would have a high volume of applicants, more like 20 or so. Karen says, "You will respect me," then gets what she deserves. This happened some years ago in my first year at college. The Karen, crazy lady. We've got the guards, security guards at the station, and we've got the other lady. I was just returning to college after a winter break and was traveling from the airport at night to my campus on the other side of the city. So I needed to change a couple of subway lines and buses. I had with me a big suitcase, my backpack, and a notebook carrying case. I got off of the subway and started looking for the elevator so I don't have to use the escalators with all of my stuff and cause any problems. I find the elevator and it's just closed its doors and a couple of people were already in line waiting. I got in line to wait and a Karen arrived and started pushing people aside and trying to cut in front of them. As Karen did not look nearly older than 40, was trying to get past me, I turned to her and said, "Ma'am, where do you think you're going? You need to get in line to use the elevator, and all of these people have been waiting to use it just like you." She opens her eyes wide and makes a disgusted face to me and says, "Don't you people read?" pointing to a sign that reads, "Please give priority to the elderly and disabled," or something very close to that. I'm normally a very nice and polite guy, but I was exhausted and could not deal with her. So I said, "Oh, sorry, which are you, the elderly or disabled?" Karen is triggered. She started shaking with rage and shouted, "You are just a rude, ignorant brat. I'm older than you. You will treat me with respect." I smiled and said, "You are older than me, but you're not elderly. Plus, you talk about respect, but you pushed aside a mother with a stroller and a man in a wheelchair." She did. "Where's your respect to all of these people you cut in front of?" She held out her arms in her fur coat, enough for being a jerk of a person, and tried hitting me with a bag of hers. I stepped out of her way, and she actually hit the other lady. At that point, other people started vocally supporting me, and apparently someone called the security guard. So the guard came out of nowhere, and people started pointing to Karen, so he asked her to follow him. Karen turned the craziness to 11 and started yelling at everybody, starting with the guard and me. The guard did not lose any time and called backup as he tried to hold her because she tried to run away in her heels. It was actually hilarious. More guards arrived and dragged her since the other lady wanted to press charges. I was asked to follow them as well. We took some other elevator up. The police are called. They talked with everyone and I told them what happened. Other lady also told them what happened. In the end, Karen was taken to the police station with the other lady. I assumed she was charged, but no way for me to know that. Have a nice day/night, people. Am I the jerk for telling my ex-wife she didn't have to make a scene? So my daughter said for her 15th birthday that she wanted to go shopping with both my ex-wife, who's 51 female, and I, 53 male, and pick out a camel coat because she's wanted one for a long time. My current wife, 31 female, and our son, 2 male, happened to be there because my wife wanted to buy stuff in the department store we were going to, but she drove herself and our son there in a different car. A very young saleswoman that seemed new comes out and starts helping my daughter out. My ex-wife is standing pretty far away, and my current wife was nearby looking at some winter coats with our son. My daughter finds a coat that she really likes and asks what I think. I tell her that I like whatever she likes, and at this point, she's looking at herself in the mirror. The sales lady then gestures towards my ex-wife and says, "Why don't you go show grandma and see what she thinks?" My ex-wife is within earshot and very visibly stiffens at the remark. My daughter kind of just looks shocked, and her stepmother interjects and says, "Oh no, I'm not her mom. She's the mom." The sales girl was very clearly embarrassed and flustered, and the first thing she does is sputter out to my current wife, "I thought you were a bit too young to have a teenager." And then she turns to my ex-wife and very apologetically says, "I'm sorry, ma'am," and makes her excuses and pretty much backs away from all of us. My ex-wife's face turns red, and when my daughter tried to speak to her, my ex-wife said, "Excuse me for a minute, I'll be right back," and then she rushed out of the store. My daughter ended up not buying anything, and when my ex-wife came back, my daughter said she'd rather go home and have her birthday cake. On the ride back to my ex's place, my ex-wife muttered that she hoped that sales girl was new because she clearly didn't know how to deal with customers. I didn't think that was fair for my ex-wife to say rude things about someone who just made an innocent mistake and to still be holding a grudge over a stupid comment. When our daughter was out of earshot, I told her that she didn't have to ruin the day by leaving the store and that I've been mistaken for somebody's brother that I looked 0% like. She started crying and saying that's not the same thing as being called someone's grandmother, and how dare I fault her for her reaction. Then she sarcastically said, "Thanks again for helping the world remind me how gracefully I'm aging." Am I the jerk here? I was just defending this poor girl who clearly just spoke her mind. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk or not? Please let us know. Awkward! Support our channel by joining as a member today, and we'll give you a shout out in our next video. Or come watch this video next. You won't believe what Karen does in that one.